Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday for everyone. Hope everybody has a good weekend. And today we got USA. Go USA or Australia, JJ. So we got last two shows was good. Wait till today, you guys. I got some really good stuff to come out today. Really good stuff. Hey, Paul. Made it in early. Just got some chicken for lunch, and I took Chico to the park today, and he met some new friends. And we are going to have a big lineup. We got two big interviews. I got from the good ones. I said I don't do the interviews unless they're the good ones. And one is John Downing and Derek Johnson. We're talking about the EBS. That's going to be an hour. And then we got a 2 hour Captain Kyle that came out last night, but they didn't show their faces on this one. So that's for later on. Because I got a bunch of other stuff I got to get out. I got some really good 10-minute ones. And the first one I'm going to play will be I guess we'll play with, I don't know. We'll do a 2-minute one first. I'm going to do the 2-minute the lion video. And then the first big video out of Tulsi Gabbard yesterday. If anybody didn't see that video, I'm going to play it on Penny's channel because everybody's been playing it. And what else? So I'm going to go ahead and start a little bit early. The first show, I don't know how long ago, but we'll watch the soccer game during the show. And then I don't know, we got a lot of stuff to cover. Hopefully I don't wear myself out. But we're going to get started because I know this is the first show. There's a lot of people at work right now. So I hope everybody's listening. And Lucy Mom. So we will go ahead and get started.
Every time life
Couple minutes, you guys.
Love him so deeply that no human disappointment can steal your peace. It won't be easy. Darkness will find you, doors will close in your face. Prayers will seem unanswered. You'll have days when nothing makes sense and nights when sleep refuses to come. But trust this. God sees what you cannot. Don't cry forever over a closed door. Turn around, keep moving. Some doors are closed because they lead nowhere. Some delays are not punishment. Some detours are not mistakes. What frustrates you today will be the very thing you'll thank God for tomorrow.
Take out.
Faith isn't something you practice only on Sundays. It is believing God is working when all you see is mud, blood, and broken pieces. It is trusting Him when the path is unclear, when the future disappears, when fear gets louder than your faith. It's holding on when your chest feels tight and your heart feels tired, when your questions keep multiplying and the answers stay silent. Faith is not knowing how. It is knowing who. It is trusting God with the blessings and also with the burdens, with the victories and also with the wounds, with the seasons that make sense and the seasons that don't. One day, you'll look back at the heartbreak, the delay, the rejection, the struggle, and realize that God's hand was on your life the entire time. So keep praying. Keep believing. Keep moving forward. The chapter may be difficult, but the author is still writing your story. Be so comfortable.
Wow, that's a good one, huh, Paul? Way to start the show with. Okay. Let's do the warehouse update. They got an update. I'm gonna wait till we get a few more people in chat to play the first big intel video. This one's 12 minutes.
And uses just a fraction of the energy of a regular.
Welcome back here. I'm now from Fox. As we continue to follow this breaking news, we've been bringing you these live images here of this warehouse fire out in Los Angeles, California. And this is some video from a bit earlier this morning. That was that live image I was telling you about. Once again, this coming maybe just about an hour or so ago. This very active fire, the smoke still rising into the sky. We've been following this story for the past several days here from our Fox 11 LA team as this massive warehouse fire in Boyle Heights flaring up again yesterday, sending this smoke into surrounding neighborhoods and prompting officials to issue another shelter-in-place order more than 24 hours after the fire first erupted. We've been getting in these updates here from our Fox 11 LA team, and we've been waiting to see if we were going to be getting a press conference here this morning. We are hearing live right now from officials, but what I wanted to do is just play back these comments from the beginning here as they did begin during the commercial break. Once again, let's listen in to these comments from officials happening now.
Everyone ready?
Yeah.
Hardest question we're going to ask you is your name and your title with the LAFD. Yeah, ready.
Brandon Silver.
Oh, wait.
Are some of you going live?
Yeah.
No live?
No
They
live.
might be live. They might take us, but
You can still swear, though.
yeah.
Brandon Silverman, BrandenSilverman, Captain, Los Angeles City Fire Department and Public Information Officer.
The telephone hub, and what is the situation right now?
So overnight we had crews on scene, of course, monitoring the fire and keeping it in check. We did have some significant flare-ups throughout the evening and overnight, so we did call in our air resources again that did some priority water drops. Most of that fire was contained to the roof, just as we had seen throughout this incident. Those solar panels continue to smolder. The roofing material below those solar panels is smoldering, and occasionally it does flare up. So those air operations, water drops were key in keeping this fire in check. At this point, we haven't been able to get crews inside of the building to fight the fire in an offensive type attack. We've been putting water into the building from the outside as much as possible. We've utilized our robotic firefighting equipment, our RS3 we call it, inside the building as much as possible. But this is a very large facility, as you know, so it's difficult for us to get inside and find exactly where that fire is burning. At this point, all indications are that it's burning up high near the roof area. So that's where we're focusing our efforts with exterior ladder pipes. Those are the hoses that squirt down from our aerial ladders, as well as our master streams, our large appliances that flow a lot of water from the ground. So we're going to continue that, keeping this fire in check as much as possible. Our urban search and rescue teams, Department of Building Safety, are monitoring the structural integrity of this building as well. And we're looking at options to see how we can better get water directly on the fire.
Do we have any roof collapse? And if that's the case, when you talk about structural integrity, what is the position to place your firefighters in obviously hopes that nobody gets hurt?
Of course, we do know that there is definitely some structural compromise on the roof. I mean, this fire's been burning and smoldering for hours upon hours, and not to mention all the water drops and everything. The water is heavy. So we know there's structural compromise on the roof, and that's why we are definitely not putting crews inside the building at this point until we can really deem it safe enough to do so. But if we can keep this fire contained to where it is on that roof area and within any areas within the interior that it may be, and we haven't been able to confirm because we haven't been inside. We have tried our drones to get visuals, and as I mentioned, we have our robotic equipment that we've been using. But until we can deem it safe, we won't be able to put anybody inside, but we're going to do everything we can to fight this fire from the exterior, keeping it from being a hazard to any surrounding businesses.
Talking about that last night, you had air ops overnight. Talk about that.
So every time the fire did flare up and we weren't able to reach it with any kind of hand lines, we did call in our air assets, and there were several water drops that were made by our water dropping helicopters. And they, as you've seen on brush fires, we're treating this very similarly, and they're able to have a surgical water drop, we like to call it, where they can be very strategic on where they place that water. They don't necessarily drop it all at once, and they spread it along the perimeter of the fire and hit just those hot spots.
You know, it's been frustrating for people that there was the shelter in place, it was lifted, then there was another shelter in place. Can you talk about that and how much people should worry about what's in the air?
Of course. Yeah, and we don't want to confuse people by changing it too often, and we are carefully evaluating whether or not we can potentially lift that shelter in place at some time today. But the main thing is no smoke is good smoke. Fortunately, all of our air monitoring that our hazardous materials crews have done have not found any additional hazardous chemicals in the smoke other than what's in normal structure fire smoke. So we always advise people do not breathe any smoke and stay indoors, especially if you have any kind of respiratory illnesses or you're sensitive to smoke. Keep your windows and doors closed if you're in the immediate area. If you can smell the smoke but not necessarily see it, we still would definitely advise you to stay indoors. If you have an air conditioning system that's a closed loop system, like most households that have central air, you can run your AC. You can run that air conditioning. It goes through a filter system and doesn't pull air from the outside. But if you have window air conditioning units, if you have swamp cooler type air conditioning units that pull air from the outside, leave those off so it doesn't pull that smoky air into your house. But we are evaluating constantly whether or not we can change those shelter-in-place orders or even change the advisories that we have in place. As the smoke moves into different areas based on the wind direction, we may change those smoke advisory areas.
Can you talk about the change from this time yesterday to now? This time yesterday, things looked good. In fact, your fire chief.
So that's the latest update on that. I'm going to go ahead and get Vinny, the first big video of the day.
Suitable for everyone. Whether you have complete teeth, partial missing.
Back when Hollywood knew how to make comedy, about 30 years ago, a movie called Office Space came out, a perfect treatment on the nihilism of the American office workspace. And 3 disgruntled employees on their last day at work took their aggression out on a printer, which was the single greatest annoyance and enraging vector for their workplace, and resulted in one of the funniest scenes in what I believe to be American cinematic history, as these 3 employees to gangster rap music smash the hell out of this printer and beat it to death. This just shows the basic aggression of the pent-up office environment and what it means to actually take that aggression out, finally getting the let out. And that's exactly what Tulsi Gabbard's doing right now. Tulsi Gabbard is on her last day in office, and she's left the ODNI role, and that sucks because we like Tulsi a lot. Tulsi Gabbard, however, dropped a heater on her way out. She brought the printer out to the middle of the field and beat the hell out of it, effectively nuking Dr. Fauci's entire life and career forever by releasing a never-before-seen report and communication and documentation exposing how Dr. Fauci provided millions in U.S. taxpayer funding to dangerous gain-of-function research in Wuhan lab and worked to politicize elements within the intelligence community to suppress the truth about his actions and hide the virus's lab leak origins, and then lied to Congress while under oath in 2024. Meaning, of course, he's within the window where you could absolutely charge the guy. It's time you know the truth, says Tulsi. I'll play you Tulsi's video in just 1 second, but let's go ahead and click on this report. Oh, yeah, it's real. Fauci funded Wuhan lab research that sparked COVID. That's the title. Holy moly. And here it is. Let's go ahead and read the top line here. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Anthony Fauci, the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, provided millions in U.S. taxpayer funding to dangerous gain-of-function research. That was illegal, of course. This was the lab leak that sparked the pandemic. Tulsi Gabbard has now released the information that Fauci tried to suppress about his actions, virus leak origins. Ooh, what an absolute heater. You can read communications and documents
pretty
here.
Video here, huh?
Oh my goodness. So what is going to happen next is Dr. Fauci has to go to prison. Fauci's close intelligence community relationship enabled him to assume 3 key roles during the pandemic. Fauci funded risky coronavirus research linked to big pharma in the pursuit of universal vaccines worth trillions of dollars. Fauci was behind-the-scenes advisor with hand-picked experts who pushed the intelligence community to endorse natural origin and hide his dangerous research. Fauci became the nation's pandemic pundit and publicly pushed lies, disinformation, and censorship. Fauci's relationship with the intelligence community, pushed public narratives. Fauci lied to Congress, retaliated against truth seekers. Holy moly. The following examples have been referred to the intelligence community's inspector general. Oh, man. Look at this. Spiraled in panic as Tulsi Gabbard prepares to unleash bombshell file dump on CIA mind control project and Dr. Fauci. Well, we haven't seen the mind control project and Ultra yet, but the Dr. Fauci thing is real as a heart attack. And it's giving people a heart attack in the deep state. Tulsi Gabbard drops the documents. Gabbard says that the records demonstrate the connections between the U.S.-funded research, Wuhan virology efforts, and lied to Congress. Well, I mean, if you lied to Congress in 2004, then you're going to jail. You should go to jail. That is absolutely within a window where you could prosecute and prosecute savagely. Look at this. Kennedy thanking her. The American people deserve the truth. Tulsi Gabbard going insanely viral on this. Holy moly. Tulsi Gabbard, ladies and gentlemen. She's leaving office. Some say it's because of the Iran war. She was obviously against that. But she's saying that her husband has, and we, of course, he does. He has bone cancer and he's doing surgeries and he's been in surgery. Actually, he's done now 2 surgeries. Why is this information censorship? And so she's going to be with her husband. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe it could be a system where Tulsi Gabbard comes back in some capacity. I don't know. Big fan of Tulsi Gabbard, though. You know, obviously she's been a friend of the show. Over the last 15 months, Tulsi Gabbard has challenged the entrenched bureaucracy, fought Aloha director, and fought ultimately serves the American people. Clap in, clap out. Aloha director. Well, there we go. Here she is on her first day, and here she is on her last day. I just walked out of ODNI headquarters for the last time. Thank you, President Trump. I remain grateful and profound honor to serve the American people as Director of National Intelligence. Just in time for the upcoming MK Ultra hearing. Oh, boy. Yeah.
Hey,
Sick to my stomach reading Tulsi Gabbard's declassified bombshells. They lay out the entire treasonous plot, weaponizing Zelensky phone call to impeach Trump, Rudy Giuliani.
So, yeah, this is the first big one. I did the lion video and then the weather, fire. And I found something else last night. Finally, we got a 2-hour Captain Kyle today to add with all the rest of the stuff.
Wow. I mean, this is just, I mean, the network that these guys have put together. Finally, here we go. Thank you to Tulsi Gabbard. Anthony Fauci should be in prison Dr. Death, the single greatest evil bureaucrat in the history of the world, and that's saying a lot, gives us a parting gift and exposes new information on how Fauci created or COVID and undermined President Trump, withheld information to cover his own ass.
Okay, thanks,
Best
Fire.
DNI the country's ever had. Tulsi Gabbard, this is Rand Paul, drops a bombshell with more evidence of Fauci's collusion. The release includes additional documents revealing the truth, lab leak origins. I referred Fauci to the DOJ multiple times for criminal prosecution of his web of lies. Thank you, Tulsi Gabbard. More to come. Arrest Fauci now. Final hours as DNI. She's doing God's work. Best director in history. Best director in history. Thank you, Gabbard. Prosecute Fauci. People should never forget what was allowed to be done to us. Where are the Democrats
We're going to have
now?
a big lineup today.
Wow. Okay, so I'm just going to play you Tulsi Gabbard's full explanation of her actions against Dr. Fauci. You've now seen how beloved she is, and this is her parting swan song as to why she is so beloved by the MAGA base. Somebody who really took her role seriously and honorably, and we're going to miss her. Here's Tulsi.
Before the COVID pandemic, Dr. Fauci, as head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, provided millions in U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund dangerous gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, work which is now widely viewed as the source of the unintentional lab leak that sparked the pandemic. Now, in support of President Trump's maximum transparency mandate, today, on my final day as Director of National Intelligence, I'm releasing never-before-seen communications and documents that expose exactly how Fauci worked with politicized career leadership in the intelligence community to suppress the truth about his actions, the virus's lab leak origins, and his role in directing U.S. funding for this dangerous research that caused immeasurable harm and countless lost lives. Now, these documents expose Fauci's direct role in influencing and manipulating IC assessments on COVID-19 and how Fauci lied to Congress in 2024.
They all did.
When under oath, he denied knowledge of or participation in discussions with intelligence officials about viral research. We also received testimony from multiple intelligence community whistleblowers who reported retaliation for challenging the intelligence community's manipulation of intelligence on the virus's origins. Once again, revealing a clear pattern of suppressing dissent, silencing critics, and burying the truth.
I know.
Dr. Fauci's close relationships with the intelligence community enabled him to assume three key.
It was all planned. That's why they were combined citizens for the government. It should be U.S. government, not foreign.
Key roles that shield him from scrutiny. First, Dr. Fauci funded dangerous gain-of-function coronavirus research linked to big pharma and their pursuit of universal vaccines worth trillions of dollars. Second, Dr. Fauci was the behind-the-scenes advisor who, alongside his hand-picked so-called experts, pushed the intelligence community to endorse a natural animal origin to hide his dangerous gain-of-function research that he funded using taxpayer dollars, all of this in a deliberate attempt to cover up the truth and shift the blame and attention away from Fauci's own actions. Third, Dr. Fauci became the nation's pandemic pundit, and he publicly pushed lies, disinformation, and censorship using every platform available.
Do you know how amazing it is? Just 3 seconds? It gives you a smoother shave than your wife's, leaving no stubble. Developed jointly by a renowned razor brand team.
Now, according to hundreds of reviewed emails, which are included in this release, the intelligence community almost always incorporated Fauci's recommendations. He promoted a fraudulent paper whose publication he helped prompt as legitimate information for intelligence community consideration. Senior analysts praised Dr. Fauci, not as a policymaker, but as what they called an unbiased guide to the real coronavirus experts. while deliberately ignoring experts who might dissent from Fauci's narratives. Now, Fauci didn't stop there. He blatantly lied to Congress under oath during his 2024 testimony to the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, denying that he ever spoke to any intelligence agency about COVID. Now, the correspondence I'm releasing today directly contradicts his sworn testimony. Now, we received statements from multiple whistleblowers revealing that the intelligence analysts who dared to challenge Dr. Fauci's COVID origin conclusions faced threats of retaliation, marginalization, and many suffered career setbacks. For example, a contractor was terminated just days after coming forward to ODNI as a whistleblower. Another example, those who advocated for the lab leak hypothesis or expressed dissenting views were reminded by their managers that leadership would determine which analysts would be promoted and which would not. The message was clear: go along or be punished. Senior leaders also sought to undermine whistleblowers by removing anonymity, which is required in the whistleblower process, as they made their complaints, and also insisting that their managers or attorneys be present during ODNI meetings where these whistleblowers were coming forward with their testimony, obviously creating an atmosphere of intimidation. The COVID pandemic caused tremendous hardship and pain for millions of our fellow Americans and countless people around the world. Now, after years of lies and censorship and cover-ups, the American people deserve transparency, truth, and accountability. The tactics that were used to hide the truth are straight from the deep state playbook. Politicized, self-serving leaders like Dr. Fauci covered up their own wrongdoing and abuses of power, manipulated intelligence, lied to Congress, and undermined a duly elected president by restricting his access to the vital facts he needed to keep the country safe. It's time you know the truth.
Yep, finally. Very powerful one there. That's the first big video of the day. And I see on Fox right now, Kim, J.D. Vance is delaying departure to Iran. So I don't know what that means. So the next two, I got two more penny videos. Then we're going to do that first Billy Bean of 20 minutes. I want to get all the big videos out first and then get to the short ones later.
Papes.
Goal hasn't changed. I've been laser focused on stopping these animals, and I will stop them. If you think we uncovered a lot of fraud and evil in the campaign, just wait. We have some recordings of one of your insulted candidates doing and saying something that would make her resign in shame. I was saving it for the general election. Go ahead and pick your demon, certify your choice, and then you get to see it. So Karen Nithya, ask yourself, is it possible that one of your employees may have a recording of you doing or saying something that would force you to resign in disgrace?
Hope you sleep well at night. What could it possibly be? Well, the FBI has just descended upon Los Angeles, a specific area of Los Angeles, the area that Nikki Rahman won. You can see here, Nikki Rahman in sort of the turquoise here won all of downtown Los Angeles. Now, if you drive through downtown Los Angeles, you'll find that it is simply a homeless encampment. There's nobody living there. It's the biggest homeless encampment on earth. 100,000 people live there in squalor. A place called Skid Row is where they reside. It's pretty famous. And suddenly, out of nowhere, these massive homeless encampments started voting for Nikki Rahman en masse. It's the only places that she won, actually. You can see here, the black neighborhoods in the ghetto were won by Karen Bass. The respectable and nice and beautiful, pristine and rich neighborhoods were won by Spencer Pratt. And then you have the homeless encampments that are neither the ghetto nor the rich, nice neighborhoods, but actually third world squalor. And that's what Nikki Raman won, the dirty communist. And that is the place that the FBI is raiding today. FBI agents are hitting Skid Row. What do you notice in the background? We're cleaning up LA whether you like it or not. So you can have FBI. So FBI agents are out on the ground in Skid Row doing investigations, speaking to homeless people. It's important that we protect our democracy. We need to have as much faith in the electoral system as possible. What are they going to find when they descend on Skid Row? Well, the FBI says in an official statement that they got him. We got him. Not on our watch. We got him. FBI agents looked for massive voter fraud in stunning claims of election bribery. Got him. Well, wait a second. What do you actually got him? Securing our elections is the utmost priority, says Kash Patel. If you mess with our elections, we will find you. Well, spoken like people who have something. Let's uncover what they might have. FBI just descended on Skid Row to investigate election fraud. The details are damning. 20 federal agents, plainclothes officers, homeless residents said they were paid cash money to sign paperwork and register to vote. One guilty plea has already happened for vote rigging in Skid Row. New felony charge, woman accused of paying other people to register to vote. We know the truth, and for weeks they told you this was a hoax. We know the truth because they've told us.
Yeah, they had to sign a little thing.
And how much they pay you?
It was like $2.
$2? Had to sign off on a thing to vote for her?
Yeah.
And so they do this for everybody out here?
Yeah, they come out here all the time.
Yeah, but that was for Karen Bass. Oh, so $2 to vote for Karen Bass on a mail-in ballot?
I can't remember.
And then you send it in. They took it in the box. Oh, and then you drop it in the box? That's it. Then they do this for a lot of people out here?
Yeah, anybody that's going to catch, you know, it's a little come up, man, you know.
Did they come down here and try and pay you to vote?
Actually,
on a ballot?
Yes.
Actually, it just came out 35 minutes ago, so he must be using another part from his other videos. He has a lot of videos out today.
Oh, how much they pay you?
$5.
Oh, and they said, here, come and vote for these candidates?
Yes, sir.
No, but they do come down here and do voter fraud.
They do.
Yeah, they come down here and they get your information, and then they vote for you.
So they get all the information from people on the street
It's
or
like a known
whatever,
thing.
write
It's
it
a known
down, and then they go in and vote for them.
But they'll pay you too. So it's like some people will give you 3 books, some 5, straight up.
Take a look at the next generation smart AI HUD. It brings RAF fighter jet technology directly to your windscreen. No dismantling your car and no plugging in required. Simply.
So there's an enormous amount of evidence that this is happening. In fact, there's guilty pleas. California woman federally charged with paying individuals, including homeless people in LA's Skid Row, to register to vote. Well, too bad. The vote's already counted. Doesn't matter if they're illegal. This is something that could land you in prison for a long time. This is legitimate voter fraud. Armstrong solicited petition signatures on Skid Row, an area of downtown known for homelessness and drug use. Skid Row was a convenient place to collect signatures because of the high concentration of people, relatively small area that were willing to sign petitions in exchange for $1 or $2 or $3. Many of Skid Row's homeless population were not registered to vote. To ensure she had maximized her pay from her coordinators, starting no later than 2025, Armstrong began offering payment to individuals not only to sign her petitions, but also to complete voter registration forms. Before going to Skid Row, Armstrong gathered stacks of voter registration forms from the Los Angeles County Registrar. So there it is. You can see it. As plain as day. Good, says James O'Keefe, who's done incredible work on this. Everybody's celebrating this. Obviously, what are they going to find? They're going to find exactly what we have been exposing, which is that there is a system designed in California to perpetuate and to hide fraud. And it goes like this. You can register to vote from anywhere, as we have revealed. We went out there to actually show you like how this operation works out. We traveled to the registered voting locations that are empty parking lots, street corners, Burger King parking lots, Porta-Johns. These are all registered voting locations. No voter ID required. No signature verification required. You can just register from anywhere. Anyone can register from anywhere. They don't check if you're an American citizen. They don't check if you're an American. They don't check if you are pissing your pants on drugs, dying in a gutter. That ballot's going to get mailed out and someone is going to vote for you. Then, of course, they don't count any of the votes before the election. They just start hauling in trash bags full of ballots from unmonitored drop boxes everywhere. And that's how you get this. That's how you get this. The people who are voting in these areas are out of their minds. They're literally out of their minds. Nithya Raman pulling big numbers from Skid Row. This is the worst place in America. It is the third world. And also, amazingly, Spencer Pratt voters continued to get their ballots rejected. Something like 10,000 to 15,000 different Spencer Pratt voters got their ballots sent back to them because of signature verification, which of course has never happened. See if their ballot was accepted. They rejected mine, and I didn't know until now. They rejected my wife's ballot. Convenient. They're rejecting the ballots of Republicans en masse. It's despicable. For those who say there's no election fraud in California, the DOJ prosecuted Brenda Brown for paying homeless people to register under false addresses. They caught her on camera doing this. So what is the FBI going to catch now? Will they overturn the results of the election? Will they put people in prison? I mean, I appreciate the heat they're placing on this. You can see that Spencer Pratt had his election stolen from him with a 30,000 vote margin. And all of those votes, all of them, came from mass homeless encampments in California. That's the fraud. That's the op. And of course, they wait until election night to see what the deficit is to make up. And then they just start pumping in ballots. Ooh, they are evil. We warned you about this. We traveled to LA to expose it. And we're going to go back. We're going to be doing more of this, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy, Benny. Like, share, and subscribe. Please.
We all knew that was going to be, took 6 years. We got one more video for now. It's a 10-minute one. If he has more, play later. And then I got 22-minute Billy, and then we'll get to the short videos after Billy. And then we will do John Downing and Derek Johnson hour video. Anybody see this one?
Gleaming skyscraper of glass and steel, renowned the world over, an engineering marvel. We're on top of it right now. It's the Trump Tower, baby.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Trump Chicago.
And one is Obama's library. What's up, guys? It's Benny. We are here on Chicago's South Side. Behind us, the Obama Presidential Library, soon to be completed. It's almost done. Yes, that is what it's going to look like when it's finished. Some people are calling it the world's most expensive toll booth. What they're really looking at is brutalist architecture, the chosen architecture of Marxist regimes throughout the world. This is the style of architecture that is cement, it's heavy, it's blocky, it's meant to oppress you, not to lift you up. Now, why would Barack Obama choose this style of architecture for his library and his legacy? I'll let you decide. But what we're going to do today is ask the people who live around the library what they think of it and what they think it looks like. Will you be visiting? Let's freaking go. Join us today on a tour of both presidential towers in Chicago. I have a feeling there's going to be a few differences. Cheers. In this video, we're going to break down exactly how these two projects couldn't be more different, except for one thing, the cost. The Obama Presidential Center in Chicago has blown through nearly $830 million and still isn't finished. The iconic Trump Tower in Chicago was built for roughly the same amount. The Obama Tower is 225 feet tall. The Trump Tower is a soaring 1,400 feet tall. Trump Tower Chicago was built on time and under budget. The Obama Library is now years delayed and over budget by hundreds of millions. For nearly $1 billion, you'd expect a landmark building. Instead, you get a clunky, boxy structure that looks more like a dumpster than a legacy. It's ugly, uninspiring, and, frankly, a waste of money. Don't take my word for it. Listen to the residents who are forced to look at it and live in the shadow of the abomination every single day. What do you think it looks like? Like a jail. Yeah. A little offensive to have the first black president have a jail.
Yeah.
Okay, come on. Come on. Could they have tried? What do you think of Obama's presidential library? Look at that thing.
I think it should be dedicated now. I believe that it should be dedicated to all the presidents of the United States. Because it wasn't like he was a great president. And it's basically ruined all the traffic down this way for 2 years.
What's your message to Barack Obama?
I wish he would have set a better example. You know, the first black president, where he was terrible at his job. You know, really says everyone needs everything back.
What would you call that architecture?
Garbage can, baby. Just a little.
Yeah, what does it look like
It
to
looks
you?
like a giant block of marble.
Like a giant, yep.
Like someone just took like a statue, was like, I'm just gonna chisel these pieces off real quick,
Mhm.
and then I'm gonna stick it right there.
Some lady just called it a jail.
I mean, you can't keep looking like Hogwarts when we're out here looking like Back to the Future. You know what I mean? You gotta pick and choose your battles here. You can't have it all. We gotta update something here.
I respect those references. That's what it looks like, a DeLorean.
Yes.
That's like a big, clunky gray. Yeah, you're right.
You know, it's just a giant gray TARDIS. That's all.
Great. And what do you think this looks like? What do you
This is
think
a
it
good
looks
one here, you guys.
Like a mountain.
Like a mountain? What do you think it looks like?
Looks like an ATC tower.
ATC tower. What does it look like to you?
Looks like a big mausoleum.
A big mausoleum. Some people tell us that we read headlines, that some people were upset that it might gentrify or cause traffic and stuff. What do you think about that?
I don't think so. This is great. There's plenty of streets in Chicago you can reroute to. So just take it in and suck it up.
Take it in and suck it up.
Yes.
That's right. That's what Barack said to Michelle. I know. It's what Michelle said to Barack. Okay. What do you think? What do you think it looks like?
I don't know. It kind of like a rock or something.
That's just a stupid boulder.
It's not just a boulder. It's a rock. A rock.
What's your message to Barack Obama?
I don't know what you're doing right now, but whatever you're doing, I hope it's good.
Yeah.
A giant prison.
Looks like a giant prison.
On the lakefront. A prison on the lakefront.
That's great. What a fitting tribute to our first black president. Yeah. Goodness gracious. Oh, wait, we heard that twice today?
Did you really?
Yeah. That looks like a prison. And some lady was like, no, my husband was in jail. This is what a jail looks like.
Yeah, this looks better.
Yeah, I don't think, I agree.
I guess that's the style of art they do nowadays.
In Marxist countries, yeah, communist countries. Yeah.
I'm from the Soviet Union, so I should know.
Are you really?
Yeah, I am.
This is brutal architecture.
Yeah, it is, 100%. 100%. It's simplistic and brutal.
So you're from the Soviet Union?
Yeah, that's the reason why we left, to get away from stuff like that.
That's crazy.
Billy
Okay,
will
so
be
yeah,
back.
this is architecture all over. And most people don't know what brutalist architecture is, but that's exactly what it is, right?
No, it is. I mean, people try to do good, but the statement here that's left leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Trump's library is going to be totally different.
Oh, I hope not. That's going to be great. You're going to tell. You can already tell by his actions and the words he chooses and how he chooses to go on forth with it. You know, he moves with a purpose.
Yes.
This was no purpose.
This has no purpose. Communism has no purpose. Brutalist architecture has no purpose. Former communists against Obama for Donald Trump. While nearly $1 billion got poured into this building, the neighborhoods around it are left for dead. I found an abandoned boat in the parking lot filled with weeds and beer cans just sitting there to rot. Nothing but class here in the south side of Chicago. People were so excited to visit the Obama Presidential Library. They just drove their boat right up here and parked it. They can't wait. and they've been parking it for a while. Hopefully this will be in the Obama Presidential Library. Maybe this is part of it because it's a perfect representation of Obama's presidency. Power lines hanging low, a smashed street lamp, graffiti plastered everywhere, trash piled up on the corners, and yeah, plenty of empty 40-ounce bottles scattered around like it's a party that nobody cleaned up from. The reality around the center is a neglected, rundown mess. If you're spending this kind of money on legacy projects, you'd expect some effort to clean up the neighborhood, right? Nope. It's like pouring gold into a rust bucket. And on top of it, the project is mired in a $40 million racial discrimination lawsuit related to DEI hiring practices. Very on brand. The Obama Center's design is painfully bland, boxy, with zero architectural character. It doesn't add to the Chicago skyline, it drags it down. In contrast, Trump Tower is a masterpiece of modern design. Its gleaming glass facade and bold lines create a stunning presence that embodies ambition and success. It isn't just a building, it's a statement. Trump Tower has stood for 16 years as a privately funded, privately owned skyscraper that boosts Chicago's economy and skyline. Designed by top architects and packed with luxury condos, hotel rooms, and offices, it's a mixed-use marvel that attracts residents, tourists, and businesses alike. Every dollar spent on the Trump Tower in Chicago built something of value. It's lasting. And unlike the endlessly delayed, overpriced Obama Center, people in Chicago are proud of it. Obama's net worth is around $100 million, yet Obama has never built or created anything. He's designed no product and provided no service, except to serve himself. In contrast, the Trump Organization has served millions while creating tens of thousands of jobs and carving skylines around the world. It's aspirational. Trump is a self-made billionaire, and his Chicago Tower reflects the scale and ambition of the American dream, built with private money and delivering real results. The contrast is stark. The Obama Center is a cautionary tale of waste, mismanagement, and lack of vision. The Trump Tower is a shining example of how ambition, investment, and execution builds true legacies. You know, the skyscraper is a uniquely American invention. We're the first ones to build them. We're the best at building them. And cities like Chicago is a city of skyscrapers. It's one of the best skylines in the world. And so if you're a president and you're going to make your mark on the city of skyscrapers, then you better do it right. Don't be weak about it. Don't make it ugly. Make it epic. President Trump's been making the skylines of America epic for a very long time, far before he was president. And for my money, I'm going with Trump. It sounds like the people in Obama's neighborhood on the South Side agree with me. Ain't that sweet? It's your boy, Benny.
Okay, that's a good one again from Benny. Okay, 22 minutes. Billy.
Let it soak in for a few minutes.
Welcome to Truth by Billy Bean. Today's date, June 19, 2026, time in Texas, about 9 a.m. And thanks for like, subscribe, and share. Some of the things we'll cover today: the U.S., flood, famine, California earthquake. President Trump is still Israel's ally. And Iran, the nutballs there, are closing the Strait of Hormuz today. So let's get started. So we have from the National Hurricane Center, we have a situation going on with the formerly tropical storm Arthur. It's now about near Alabama, Florida, predicted to move offshore today with a 10% chance of development in the next 48 to 7 days. Currently, it's just remnants of the tropical storm, but it's still enough to bring flash flooding and heavy rain to these areas as it moves across. So we'll have to watch it as it goes into the Atlantic off the East Coast for further development. That's going on. Famine. So we have multiple things going on with the Earth. We have a thousands-year cycle taking place. We are in the process of a pole shift. We do have changes in space impacting the Earth, including chemical changes on the sun. We have a much weakened electromagnetic shield around the Earth, bringing in more radiation, allowing more meteors from space to hit the Earth. So we do have an increased probability for significant weather and climate changes. And the climate over time does affect crops all over the Earth. Now, this week, Pastor Paul Begley had 2 dreams from the Lord about famine. Famine is a long-term session of no crops growing in the ground. And Pastor Paul said in his dream, he could see like wheat plants, but they were very weak plants, and there was something wrong with the germination of the seeds going forward. Does that correlate with science? Yes, I would say it does. So, baby, it's a good time to prep. So that's going on. And we have this also from YouTube Space Weather. We have that there's an increased pressure buildup being documented by seismologists in the California fault system, and that there is now more pressure on the California fault system than has been recorded for the past 1,000 years. Certainly, modern documentation would only cover, in the U.S., 250 years. But pressure and previous earthquake events can be documented by science through examining soil and rocks and earth core, ocean cores, and so on. So a predictive model held by the USGS could go back 1,000 years. So that's going on. If you're in California, you might want to think about in the Los Angeles area and the San Andreas Fault area, you might want to at least have an evac plan as well as prepping. We have this coming out from Tulsi Gabbard as she leaves her office of Director of National Intel, bringing out more information about Fauci. And this correlates to my research I've put in place since 2020, that Fauci, head of the NIH for 40 years, certainly guided and funded and directed gain of function by the U.S., the making of bioweapons, including the COVID, via the U.S. funded and directed Wuhan lab in China. She brings out that Fauci lied to Congress in 2024 and that documents are coming out supporting that Fauci also guided the U.S. intel agencies to go along with his lies that he was putting out about COVID. So that's going on. And now we have this. So from Judge Napolitano, who recently interviewed retired Colonel Douglas McGregor, that certainly we see a significant drop globally in oil reserves as well as LNG, prompting what many believe was President Trump's effort toward getting the Memorandum of Understanding with Iran, which I will demonstrate today that the nutballs and the IRGC are taking down today. And we have from U.S. Intel.
These transforming glasses automatically adjust to what you're looking at. All glasses have this tiny flaw, but this
That yesterday, the Iran suspended the 60-day negotiation period that was included in the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, and that they have canceled their trip for the face-to-face signing to take place Friday in Geneva from U.S. Intel. So we've been seeing over the past couple of days the nutballs and the IRGC telling their proxy in Lebanon and Hezbollah is not a part of the Lebanon government nor the Lebanon military. Hezbollah is a terrorist group funded and directed by Iran. And the nutballs and the IRGC directed Hezbollah to hit Israel. And naturally, Israel responded by defending itself. We also heard nutballs in the Israeli government, Gavir, Smotrich, Katz, coming out and calling President Trump a traitor. Now, Israel cannot exist without the U.S. We send Israel every month millions of dollars. Israel cannot exist without the support of the U.S. military. So I got this to say to the Israeli government individuals, Smotrich, Katz, and another, who yesterday called President Trump a traitor to Israel. I got this to say to the Israeli government, shut up. Israel cannot exist on its own without the support of U.S. money and U.S. military. Shut up. How dare you call President Trump a traitor? You nutballs in the Israeli government have demonstrated that you're on the same level as the nutballs in the IRGC, a complete departure from the real world. So that's going on. And we had Vice President Vance certainly defending President Trump and the U.S. against the nutballs in the Israeli government from yesterday. Yes. And accurately bringing out Israel cannot exist without the U.S. How dare you call President Trump a traitor to Israel? Shut up. And we have this from New York Prepper, that the U.S. is going to be moving nukes to Europe, specifically Poland and Lithuania, and the U.S. is also going to station nuclear-capable planes in Poland and Lithuania. I'm assuming this is a move by the U.S. as a deterrent against Russia. And we have Ukraine continuing to hit Russia very hard. Inside Russia, near St. Petersburg and Moscow, bringing about gas rationing inside Russia. So that's going on. But we also see Russia taking more land in Ukraine with the falling in the last 24 hours of 2 areas along the front line to Russia. Ukraine can launch drones, but Ukraine lacks an effective military to take and control land areas. Therefore, Russia, with its 700,000 troops inside Ukraine, is expected by military analysts to win. So that's going on. And we had a Russian retaliation against Ukraine's drones taking down their oil and gasoline inside Russia. So Russia retaliated yesterday, and they hit Kiev, Sumy, Poltava, Dnipro, and they hit an elite community inside Kiev where all of the Ukraine elite, the leaders of big business, big government, big military live, called Kacha Zaspra. So Russia hit that yesterday. And we have this. So we have now, with the MOU signed with Iran yesterday, they had some money released to them that was available to be released to them under the guidance of U.S. Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent.
I ordered this at-home foot therapy device called EMSense, and honestly, I was ready to send it right back.
It was up to $3 billion. Could be released to Iran as Iran places orders for humanitarian products, American products. So the money is available to Iran. Iran has to make orders for food, medicine, water, and so on, back to the U.S. Treasury, at which time Scott Bessent will see that the orders are processed for American products to flow into Iran. Who says President Trump is not a smart economist? And we have this, that Susan Kokenda was interviewed by Stephen Gardner. And we know that part of President Trump's strategy with Venezuela and Iran is to bring down the deep state financial center located in the city of London. So President Trump is now making this happen, also by taking down Lloyd's of London, also a deep state operation for shipping insurance.
I'll be doing John's video after we do about 5 or so short ones.
So that's going on. And we have this from U.S. Intel. So yesterday, Iran canceled the signing meeting in Geneva, Switzerland, threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz, which it has done today. And we have this from Tusi TV that yesterday Benjamin Netanyahu refused to withdraw from Lebanon, as was requested by the U.S. And Hezbollah is a proxy for Iran. Hezbollah is not a part of the Lebanese government. Hezbollah was put in place by Iran with one objective, and that was to destroy Israel. So that's going on. We do have breaking news today that Lebanon and Israel will.
I was just telling Lucy, Carol, just in time. I was waiting to see if we get more in for the John Downing and Derek Johnson hour video. And then tonight I'm gonna play a 2-hour Captain Kyle from they had one last night again. But they didn't show their faces on this one. But we'll play that one tonight. And I got a lot more good stuff to come today.
Bring about a ceasefire at 4 o'clock today. Now, I submit this. The crazies in the IRGC will most likely prompt Hezbollah to make additional strikes on Israel today. So we'll have to watch and see how that goes. And we have this from the U.S. government. Oh, and the information Tulsi Gabbard was bringing out about Fauci was also that he lied to Congress in 2024, which is clearly documented. So why isn't Fauci, well, I assume he's under investigation by the DOJ. But with this information coming out from Tulsi Gabbard, we need to see Fauci in the perf walk. And we have this from the U.S. government. So yesterday I brought out that Tulsi Gabbard released documents, U.S. government documents, proving that Fauci knew and funded and directed the making of the bioweapon COVID, and that Fauci clearly knew that the COVID shot had side effects, which the FDA and CDC also knew, but kept secret. Now, it's good that you're listening to alternative news if you're listening to this segment by myself, because the mainstream media declines to publish this information about Fauci, the COVID, the bioweapon, and so on.
We're the news
The
now.
mainstream media groups who will not publish this information includes the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post, USA Today, Fox Digital, also ABC, NBC, CNN, PBS, and MS Now. So you're keeping up with real news if you're listening to the alternative YouTube.
If you're 62 or older, there's a way to access your home equity without monthly mortgage payments.
Certain channels. You get Truth on Mine.
In mine.
We have this. Yes. So just a few minutes ago on Fox Now on TV came out that Israel and Lebanon will bring about a ceasefire at 4 o'clock today. And we have this. Yes, the Coast Guard also in the last few days seized a boat off of Florida carrying 25 Chinese illegals. Yes, they're invading. We have this from 2CTV. Coming out today is that the MP in London for England, for the UK, Keir Starmer, will be replaced in the Labour Party by a Mr. Burnham. So that's going on. And also brings out the UK, we know, since 2000 has allowed millions of illegals to come into the UK. A startling number supporting an increase in violent crime, correlating to the bringing in of millions of illegals. In the UK in 2000, they had about 9,000 reports of rapes. In 2025, that was up to 70,000. So we can see why the people of the UK are up in arms. And we have this today, U.S. Intel. So about 7 a.m. this morning, the IRGC announces the Strait of Hormuz is closed because Israel defends itself against Lebanon. And that the IRGC is demanding that the U.S. military withdraw from the Middle East. So that's going on. And we have this. Yeah. So then about 9 a.m. this morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so a few minutes ago, the IRGC began broadcasting on Maritime Channel 16. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. If you get your ship in the Strait of Hormuz, the IRGC is going to fire upon you. So we have quite a few things going on today. So this concludes my flash update. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Patricia Heaton. This is how to tell if your olive oil is fake.
Did you hear about the TikTok olive oil test? Well, it's really easy, so just watch me. This is real olive oil.
Oh, that's how it ended on that one. Have a good day, Cam, and we'll be on tonight. And we're going to try to get some shorts in, and then we'll get to that first big hour video.
The President of the United States, in the name of the Congress, takes pleasure in presenting the Medal of Honor to Second Lieutenant James Capers, Jr., United States Marine Corps.
That was yesterday. So, Medal of Honor there. I got a 9-minute, I guess you can call it science video.
Your body. In some ways, it may even seem like a jolt of energy that comes in at times, as if you have a sense of electricity coming into you, an electrical impulse. Because of this, you do feel a heightened sense of oneness, maybe even a blissful sensation come over you, which in those times can be better than the best high that you have ever had. It may even make you feel a sense of giddiness, joy.
Let me know on this one.
At other times, depending on where you are in your aspects of yourself at that moment, you may feel the energies as heavy. Because if you are lower in vibration in those times, and as these waves of energy come in, then it will manifest as something more heavy, more negative to you, will magnify whatever your feelings are at the time. If you are feeling somewhat down, it may even make you feel further down. But always know that in that moment you can raise yourself up just with a thought. It is all that it takes now is a thought to bring you out of the doldrums. You do not need to stay there any longer. You do not need to hold yourself in those lower vibrations. For just with a thought, or even a visualization, you can bring yourselves out and into the higher vibration. Just think of something beautiful. Think of how grateful you are for whatever it might be in your life. Think of a happy time in your life, those times that bring you joy. And in that instant, you will come out of those lower vibrations and into higher consciousness.
Well, all right.
That is what this is all about, my friends. This transition is all about for you and for all mankind. For those of you who have been working with these vibrations, working to raise them at a conscious level, understand that there are those across the planet who raise their vibrations each and every day, but may not even be conscious of it. It is being done at an unconscious level. But for those of you, the light warriors, you are raising your vibrations consciously because you have learned to do it. You have learned how to do it. That is what is important now for those of you. Because as you learn to do this, you will be able to teach others to do it as well. And then they will be able to teach others, and so on, and so on. As has been said many times, you are the mentors of the ones that are coming after you, just as we are the mentors to you now. So always trust in yourselves, trust in your knowings or your higher knowings, and everything that you want in your lives you will have, because you will create it with every single thought that you have. So learn to work with your thoughts. Learn to control your thoughts. As I said earlier, it only takes an instant of a new positive thought to raise your consciousness in that moment. I am Ashtar, and always know that we in our ships are here watching over you and preparing each and every day for those moments, those times, when we will be able to show ourselves more and more as we are already doing. Those of you who now have the eyes to see are able to witness those things in the skies that many others will not yet be able to see. All of my peace and love be with all of you. A sound, soul, when you feel at one with another, changes in the air. In fact, enormous changes and revelations are shortly to be unveiled as humanity progresses most effectively towards the moment of its grand awakening. Your awakening has always been God's will for you, and God's will, the divine will, in fact humanity's will, your collective will, since the unreal but very real seeming separation experience commenced, is one will, and it is always achieved. There are no exceptions. Of course, many of you ask and continue to ask, if God is love, and his will is for us to be happy, then why is there so much pain and suffering in the world? Hard as it is for you to understand and accept, the one will, your collective will, and God's for all is that you experience eternal joy. That is reality. What you are experiencing, and seem to have been experiencing for eons, judgment, blame, conflict, pain, and suffering is illusory. Yes, the pain and suffering is very convincing and seems totally real because your physical form, the human body, has senses and feelings incorporated within it to enable it to take care of itself and enjoy life. And this sensitivity comes at a price. You have a saying, there is no such thing as a free lunch. And that price is the ability to feel pleasure and pain, happiness and suffering. Your bodies are sensitive instruments through which consciousness experiences the unreality of separation from source, momentarily. The experience of separation was but a momentary sensation, but it seems to have been ongoing for thousands of millennia. In reality, there is only love, which includes peace, contentment, happiness, caring, cooperation, harmony, and what you experience as humans that is not of love is unreal, even though it seems very real. Most of you identify almost wholeheartedly with your bodies, with your human forms and the feelings and sensations that they undergo. However, when you go within in meditation, contemplation, or just relaxation, and your roof brain chatter reduces or even ceases for a while, you do find yourselves at peace with yourselves in self-acceptance. Suffering is due to your thoughts and the judgments and blaming that goes with them. That is what the sense of separation is all about. When you feel at one with another, your partner, spouse, children, in a loving relationship, fear, conflict, and distrust dissolve. And if you are in physical, mental, or emotional pain due to illness or damage to your bodies, or for emotional or psychological reasons, being in the presence of loved ones frequently eases it. That is what relationship is all about, being one, being lovingly supported, knowing that you are not alone. That knowing, that inner sense of belonging, being at home, loved, and accepted is what everyone seeks. And of course, that is reality. That is where you are in every moment of your eternal existence. You have just temporarily lost access to conscious awareness of it. To be separated from love, from source, is unbearable, and that can never happen. But as separate individual humans, it does seem that you are separate, alone, isolated from everyone else. You all dream when you sleep, and sometimes your dreams are horrific and terrifyingly real, and sometimes they are dull, unmemorable, and sometimes they can be fun, exciting, and uplifting. Then you wake up, and they are no more because they were unreal, and very quickly you forget them totally. Well, separation, as you are experiencing it as humans in form, is also a dream. It is unreal, and you will wake up. And as with dreams, all memory of separation will also fade away when that happens, and you will find yourselves once more, where you have always been, at one with Source, and in utter joy. You are all aware that enormous change is occurring, even though you are unable to identify quite what it is that is changing. You feel it, and you know that it is happening. And at the same time, as more stuff arises to be dealt with both in yourselves and in others with whom you are in communication, life can be, and is for some, very uncomfortable and very unsettling. Just accept that what is happening is a necessary and unavoidable aspect of the awakening process.
Okay, yeah, something different, you guys. Each day we'll play something a different one. I'm going to play a few more short ones in the first hour. Video is going to be a big one. John Downey and Derek Johnson I got yesterday. I only play the good ones that we like, and I think that's one of them.
People think karma is just about punishment. It's not. Karma is the invisible law of cause and effect. Every action, thought, and habit creates a result. If you understand these 12 laws, you'll stop blaming luck and start shaping your future. 1. The great law: you reap what you sow. Whatever energy you put into the world eventually comes back to you. Kindness attracts kindness. Negativity attracts negativity.
That's a good one.
2. The law of creation. Life doesn't happen to you, it responds to you. If you want success, confidence, or respect, you must actively create it. Waiting for change is not enough. Become part of the process. 3. The law of humility. You cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. Growth begins the moment you stop making excuses and accept reality. 4. The law of growth. The only person you can truly change is yourself. You cannot control other people. You cannot force the world to adapt to you. 5. The law of responsibility. Your life reflects your choices. Every result has a cause when you take responsibility for your actions. 6. The law of connection. Everything is connected. The small decisions you make today shape the opportunities you receive tomorrow. 7. The law of focus. You cannot move in two directions at once. A distracted mind creates weak results. Focus your energy on one meaningful goal, and your progress will multiply. 8. The law of giving and hospitality. What you claim to believe must be reflected in your actions. If you value kindness, show kindness. 9. The law of here and now. The present moment is where your power exists. Dwelling on the past creates regret. Obsessing over the future creates anxiety. Progress happens when you focus on today. 10. The law of change. The same lesson repeats until it is learned. Life often presents the same challenge in different forms until you learn the lesson. 11. The law of patience and reward. Anything worthwhile takes time. The strongest trees grow slowly. Success built overnight rarely lasts. 12. The law of significance and inspiration. Every contribution matters. No act of effort is wasted. Your actions influence others in ways you may never see. The 12 laws of karma.
Okay, that was good. Okay, Dallas news.
Go, algae! Let's go, algae! Let's go, algae!
A group of pro-algae agitators took to the streets in Washington, D.C., chanting in support of the algae that has resurfaced in the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, yelling, quote, "Algae lives matter." Take a listen.
Let's go, algae! Let's go! Let's go, algae! Let's go!
9 minutes.
Let's go, algae! God sent the algae! Don't play God! Don't play God! God sent the algae! God sent the algae!
There are rumored reports that two Antifa members showed up in the overnight hours to dump the algae into the reflecting pool. However, those claims have not been confirmed by authorities. President Donald Trump decided to clean up and restore the reflecting pool that was leaking and filled with poop, algae, and everything else from prior administrations. He had crews resurface the concrete floor with a blue waterproofing material and install a new ozone nanobubbler filtration system. Secretary Burgum's office saying, quote, "The advanced nanobubbler technology very effectively killed the algae that has plagued every Lincoln reflecting pool reopening, most infamously Obama's reopening since 1922. The reflecting pool water is crystal clear, and our National Park Service team is now vacuuming up the dead algae resting on the bottom of some parts of the reflecting pool, just like the destroyed Iranian Navy resting at the bottom of the Persian Gulf." U.S. Interior Press reinforced the success, saying, quote, "The photos below show how the nanobubbler technology and vacuuming have been incredibly effective, making the water crystal clear with the American flag blue coating shining brightly on the bottom of the pool. As our National Park Service team noted, the reflecting pool is now so blue that the fake news media, which has been staked out at the reflecting pool for weeks, has fled. Previous administrations, most notably under Obama, failed to maintain the reflecting pool properly, leaving it murky, green, and filled with algae and poop. President Trump directed the latest renovation to finally address leaks and algae, making the landmark clean and beautiful again. Crews completed the refill this month, and as expected with any major restart after construction, residual algae from dormant supply lines appeared. The nanobubbler technology killed it effectively. National Park Service teams then vacuumed the dead algae from the bottom, exactly as the administration described. The result is now crystal clear water with the American flag blue bottom fully visible. Criminal referrals have been filed for Obama and Biden administration officials who allegedly funneled $29 billion in green energy grants to former cabinet secretaries, major Democrat donors, and political activists, including a group tied to Stacey Abrams. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin has made several criminal referrals to the DOJ over what he describes as a massive self-dealing scandal. Zeldin saying that his team's review uncovered systematic abuse where taxpayer dollars from programs like Biden's Inflation Reduction Act were given to politically connected insiders with little oversight, minimal qualifications, and clear conflicts of interest. Okay, here are the details. About $29 billion in total, primarily from Biden-era Inflation Reduction Act programs. This includes the $20 billion Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and about $7 billion for Solar for All. Zeldin's EPA has canceled these over, quote, pragmatic fraud, waste, and abuse, self-dealing, and reduced oversight. Biden officials allegedly parked $20 billion at an outside financial institution, Citibank accounts, to limit federal oversight before leaving office. A Project Veritas video exposed a former EPA staffer describing it as throwing gold bars off the Titanic to rush funds out. Power Forward Communities, a coalition linked to Abrams, received $2 billion despite reporting only about $100 in revenue in 2023. The group was relatively new and faced internal questions about executive salaries. Zeldin highlighted beneficiaries, including former employers and major donors to Democrats. Grants went through just 8 pass-through nonprofits, some brand new or thinly capitalized with ties to Biden allies. Internal reviews flagged high salaries, conflicts, and weak oversight. Hillary Clinton is getting slammed for claiming President Donald Trump turned the White House into rubble and a cage match after she took tens of thousands of dollars in art, furniture, china, and other items from the White House that belonged to the American people. Hillary posted, "This is what Trump's done to the people's house, a third of its rubble. Another third is a cage match." What a metaphor. Clinton is talking about the ongoing construction on the White House grounds, where crews are building a new ballroom in the East Wing. However, many are pointing out that she said absolutely nothing when Barack Obama launched a $376 million taxpayer-funded project that ripped open the North Lawn. It left a massive multi-story excavation hole right next to the West Wing, leaving piles of dirt, heavy cranes, dump trucks, construction, fences, and equipment scattered across the grounds for almost 2 years. She was Secretary of State at the time, working out of the same complex every day, yet she never once complained that Obama had turned the people's house into a muddy construction pit. Meanwhile, the ballroom is something that presidents and White House administrations going back more than 150 years have said was needed, but none of them built it until President Donald Trump broke ground in September of 2025. The ballroom is costing taxpayers exactly $0. The entire 90,000 square foot East Wing Ballroom project is 100% privately funded by President Donald Trump himself, plus private donors and corporations. Many are now reminding Hillary of the well-documented 2001 White House looting scandal and claims that she also stole china, crystal, and booze from a castle in Holland. When the Clintons left the White House in January of 2001, so did hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of items, including china, flatware, rugs, sofa, chairs, art objects, books, and other items. A separate batch of furniture valued at $28,000 was shipped to their new home in New York. Donors and White House records showed these items were intended for the permanent White House collection, not personal gifts. After getting exposed, the Clintons were forced to return $28,000. They were also made to pay the government $86,000 for other items they took. According to a 2002 House Committee on Government Reform report, the Clintons kept over $360,000 in items when all values were properly calculated. The report also noted widespread undervaluation of items, missing items, and sloppy record keeping. A General Accounting Office report later documented intentional damage by outgoing Clinton staff, including missing W keys from computer keyboards, glue poured into drawers, obscene graffiti, cut phone lines, and some missing or broken items. Clinton aides called it normal wear and tear or pranks, but Bush transition officials said it was vandalism. In short, the Clintons took public property, returned some only after getting caught, and paid for some because of the backlash. Then their staff destroyed White House property on their way out. 25 years later, Hillary Clinton is lecturing Trump about respecting the people's house while construction crews work on upgrades and celebrations. All right, let's take a quick time out so I can tell you how to save time, money, and confusion.
Okay, that's going to wrap it up with that, with the Dallas news there. So we'll go ahead and get going on these next two, and then
tidal island, barely 2 miles wide at its widest point. No farmland, coal, or timber. No room to grow. When the Dutch bought it in 1626, Boston already had a functioning harbor and a commanding head start on Atlantic trade. Philadelphia was the largest city in the colonies, the political and economic center of the entire eastern seaboard. Baltimore sat closer to the interior routes and had its own deep water access to the Chesapeake. By every reasonable measure, Manhattan should have become a mid-tier port, a useful stop on the coast, but nothing more. So how does a narrow tidal island with no natural resources and no room to expand become the most economically dominant city in the history of the Western Hemisphere? The underlying answer isn't the harbor. It isn't the Erie Canal. It isn't even Wall Street. It's what's 60 feet below street level. Look up at the Manhattan skyline and you see two dense clusters of towers. A tight pack of glass and steel downtown near the financial district. Then a gap, a stretch of mid-rise buildings where nothing tall gets built. Then another cluster in Midtown, where the Empire State Building and Rockefeller Center rise above everything else. Most people assume that gap is a zoning decision, a deliberate planning choice made by the city. But here's the strange part. The geology wrote it. Beneath Manhattan sits Manhattan schist, one of the hardest, most stable rock formations on the continent. It's roughly 450 million years old, compressed by repeated continental collision, and it runs like a spine through the island. In Midtown, the schist sits close to the surface, within a few feet of the ground in places. In Lower Manhattan, it's accessible within a few dozen feet. The Empire State Building's foundation goes 55 feet down and hits solid rock. Compare that to Chicago, where the skyscrapers don't touch bedrock at all. They're anchored in glacial till, compacted sediment left by retreating ice sheets, with foundation shafts driven deep into soft ground material. The schist is what makes Manhattan's extraordinary density possible. You can build taller, faster, and more cheaply when the stable rock is right there under your feet. And that gap in the skyline? Between downtown and midtown, the schist dips far below the surface, buried under glacial deposits and fill. The engineering required to reach it grows more expensive, so the tall buildings cluster where the rock is shallow, and thin out where it isn't. The geology arranged the skyline. It didn't plan to, it just did. But bedrock alone doesn't explain what happened here. For that, you need to understand what the island is sitting in. New York Harbor is not a harbor in the conventional sense. Most harbors are a protected bay or a single inlet. You get one entrance, one exit, and whatever natural depth the seafloor happens to give you. New York Harbor is something fundamentally different. It's a vast, protected estuary fed by multiple rivers. The Hudson, the Hackensack, the Passaic, the Raritan, all converging on the same deep-water basin at the edge of the continent. It has two functional entrances for ocean-going ships, the Narrows to the south and the East River Tidal Strait to the north, which connects the harbor directly to Long Island Sound. No other major eastern port has that geographic arrangement. Ships working routes from Liverpool or Hamburg could enter from two directions depending upon wind and tide conditions. And the depth was already there. The harbor's main channels run naturally deep. Large ocean vessels could arrive without the port spending money on dredging first. Compare that to the competition. Boston's harbor required constant maintenance dredging to stay usable for large ships. Philadelphia's access was choked by sandbars along the Delaware River, forcing ships to offload cargo before reaching the city. Baltimore had excellent depth, but sat roughly 200 miles south of the natural trade corridor, adding time and operating cost to every northbound journey. New York's harbor needed nothing. A ship leaving England didn't need to wait for a tide window, or offload cargo into shallow draft lighters, or navigate through a sandbar maze. It just arrived. That's not ambition, that's geography. And it connects to something larger, something that made this harbor uniquely valuable compared to every other deepwater port on the eastern seaboard. If you've already watched the other video on this channel, Why the World's Money Flows Through One City, You know what comes next. This is just the physical setup for that story. The Appalachian Mountains run from Georgia to Maine in a nearly unbroken wall that separates the eastern coast from the interior of the continent. Every eastern city faced the same fundamental problem. How do you move goods from the interior to your port? Most of them couldn't solve it cheaply. Mountains don't move. But at one point along that entire mountain chain, there's a gap. The Hudson River Valley cuts north from New York City, and it connects to the Mohawk River Valley, which runs west through central New York State. Together, they form the only near sea level passage through the Appalachians between Georgia and Maine. No other major eastern port has a water level route into the continental interior. That single geological accident made New York's harbor worth more than any competitor's harbor, because it came with a back door to the whole continent. The Erie Canal was built through that gap in 1825, and the railroads followed the same corridor. The interior trade flowed east and out. Look at Manhattan on a map. It's a narrow tidal island, barely 2 miles wide at its widest point. No farmland, coal, or timber. No room to grow. When the Dutch bought it in 1626, Boston already had a functioning harbor and a command.
Okay, I played that the other day. Sorry about that. We're going to get our video in. You guys will like this one.
Continues. We'll have one more week in the month, which means one more week of podcasts and report for the end of the month before
this is
the vaunted
today,
fourth holiday. Thanks for tuning in. If you're new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share. Helps the channel grow and others to gain in the knowledge currently being afforded. As always, as a normal disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor or a guru, nor does this report constitute any financial advice. It's merely high-quality information for you to use for your own personal discernmental authority. And as always, take everything that we share with you to the Lord. Let him either confirm, adjust, or correct your discernment accordingly. Excuse me. Getting down to business, Iraq. Breaking news that happened last night. We wanted to bring it to you in the mix of this report and kind of kill two birds with one stone for the sake of time. We're going to bring this up here right now while I'm talking so we can do this in real time and condense everything. So just bear with me a minute as the article comes up here. As you can see here, Prime Minister al-Zaidi is working at warp speed to complete his senior cabinet positions. The proof being right here with this article, where Zaidi has appointed Nizar Nasser, hope I'm saying that right, as the new CBI governor. This is huge because it satisfies two primary issues. Number one, removes the corruption of useless bureaucrats within Iraq's so-called leadership, to include the removal of corrupt Iranian proxies and militias within both the society of Iraq and parliament. They are standing down with their weapons. We've been talking about that for a few weeks now. This now gets incorporated into the mix. This is huge. It also sets the stage for banking reforms to be completed, which are now essentially 99% complete.
I think the interview is coming up. He's doing a report with this stuff here. And then I think Derek, come on, I think.
This is key for the vaunted HCL oil and gas law we've been told is going to pass for years and years and years and installed to enter Parliament and get passed along with all the other important laws we've discussed already ad nauseum. Small notes and coins, tax and tariff at the borders, that sort of thing. This has been delayed and manipulated on purpose for over 17 years. 17, when you know. Additionally, with the expediting of the cabinet positions, this allows the full government of Iraq to be completed sometime either this weekend or next week, and at the latest get the laws passed by the end of the month prior to Iraq going to D.C. to meet with President Trump, which we believe will be sometime in early to mid-July, somewhere between the 8th and the 15th, my educated guess. And this would set the stage for President Trump to give them the green light to go ahead and return to the international stage. And yes, this would include the new CBI and Forex rate for the public exchange. I'm going to go down here, the article you can see right here, congratulating him on completing the governorship and success in the next phase. You can look at this article at a later date if you click on the link through this podcast, and you can see a little bit more where it goes through the history of the importance of this and the press release. This should be set to go into I would believe, the Iraqi Gazette. And those who've been following a while know that the Iraqi Gazette is their legal paper, and whenever something's officially done, it always goes in there. Excuse me. Now, keep in mind that Maliki still needs to be dealt with. Both he and Israel waiting in the wings to come.
This is the wrong one, you guys. Hold on. Darn it. I'm going to play this one first so I can find that clip. 5 minutes on this one. Yeah.
I know today's Thursday. Pretty sure today's Thursday. When there's no instructional session today, it'll be next Thursday because we're going bi-weekly. But I want to give you guys an update of things that have been happening and what's been going on. The other day, I got a phone call from UPS, and they were specifically asking for our updated court orders. So I thought that was weird, but that's fine. Also, this is actually kind of interesting. We are in the process of. I've already gotten my identification, my public information route blocked, and my ID transferred with my UPS box address as a private mailbox to receive, official mail through the state of Florida. So that's done. But another thing that's happened, one of the officers that's vetted with Space Force, and she has finished up her paperwork. We have officially originated the Republic of West Florida, operating through the Alamo mission out of San Antonio. And as of today, we officially have TSA has registered that organization. So we are registered through TSA as an official organization. And there will be more to come. Secondly, the Republic of California. So the land transfer that's happening, California required that I, as the representative of our holding company, sign some documents. Those documents cannot be signed without proper notices of appearance and the notification that facility is actually a mission outpost under the Alamo mission that's attached to the Republic of California and the Republic of West Florida. So, and the American Republic, which is our registered organization with the Organization of American States at the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. So it's been really busy. I haven't made a lot of videos because I've been working a lot. I got down here and hit the ground running. We do have vault installations going in. It appears right now we have some of them are for identification blockages in their state. Some of them are actually land transfers. Some of them are full vaults. So, but we have upcoming sites. Another site in Michigan, South Carolina, Alabama, Utah, and it looks like I'm headed up to Alberta here shortly. So it's expanding, and I want to give this a little dig, just for all the people who say they're the real Republic. I know that ignorance is painful. The Organization of the American States is the governing body that can recognize republics. If they don't recognize you, you're not actually a republic. So, sorry, but that's who got the authority to recognize republics. So, for those of you saying that we're the real republic, if you're not registered with the Organization of American States, like the American Republic, / our United Republic is, you're not anything. So God bless, Godspeed, and I'll catch you on the flip side.
Okay, I found that interview. That was Robert, finally. You know what? Before I do the interview, I got this other one I want to play. This will be 10 minutes, and then we'll do the hour.
Now our next guest is somebody really special. We delayed her a little bit because some of the podcasters couldn't get in. So I am bringing on a special person who for 2 years, everybody helped. People sent cards. People sent everything to her. We had her in our prayers. You know, every show we were on, we tried to help, to do everything we could, spoke to the governor of Colorado. So without further ado, I want to bring on my very good friend, Tina Peters with Robert. Unmute.
Steve,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
We can.
I don't even know what to say to everyone. You know, you guys were literally the wind beneath my wings. It's
You
a
guys
little
hear it?
emotional
Oh, I
because of my gratitude to you and all the people out there that never stopped. The pressure that you kept on, the information that you got out. In prison, you were my voice, and now I want to be your voice. In prison, I was the voice of the women that were in there. Many of them had no voice at all, and we were able to affect change. We were able to let them know their rights while they were in there, which was amazing. So much was hidden from them in order to keep them ignorant to what was right and what was righteous and what their rights were. You know, I was a minimum security prisoner, but I was in a very violent place because in Colorado, Steve, there are no minimum security prisons for women. There's 2 prisons for women in Colorado, and what they were doing where they were overriding, they're using variances and overrides to bring in very violent criminals, murderers. It was just amazing. The people that I was associated with and subjected to, but not only that, the abuse of the prison system. There was a woman who ran the prison who immediately I was targeted. So there was so much abuse, but through it all, God got me through it. You and the believers out there that justice would prevail got me through it, and I'm very grateful. The fight is not over yet, as you know. The governor did not pardon me. He commuted my sentence, which means that the sentence still holds. He reduced it to 4.5 years. I'm still under the Department of Corrections authority. So there are restrictions there. But thank God I have good people on my side, people that know the truth. And I'm very grateful, Steve.
So if people want to donate, we know there's just so much that is owed. Give them how to get in touch, because we want to make sure that everybody listening, the millions of people all over the country, how they can help you, because I know you're still fighting and you still have the background to do that. I know there's a big thing going on Sunday. We'll talk about that later. But before you go off, give people how to.
So Sunday, Lucy, is the one I was telling you about with the lady out of Colorado. So we got to find out where they're going to be airing it.
They can reach out and how they can donate.
Thank you so much. People can always go to tinapeters.us, and that's the only place. There's been folks that have, unfortunately, that have gone out and advertised that, to go to this fund or that fund. I never saw any of that money to pay my attorneys and for my support. So the only place that right now that and in the past that people could go to support me is tinapeters.us, and there is a link there where they can find out information. They can join the mailing list so that we keep people updated, which is very important. I received so many letters from people that just constantly were reaching out and praying for me, and it just warms my heart. So if people can continue to not send, I was the thing that was upsetting to me, Steve, is that loyal people that loved me and loved the cause of freedom and liberty in America were being duped and told to go to other websites or other causes to support me and the fight. And that was one thing that upset me because I felt like they were being used. So if they can just go to tinapeters.us, and there they'll be directed to where they need to go. And just know that I won't give up. I won't back down, and I won't give in. That the fight still goes on. We obviously have to get rid of the machines. There should be no machine, no vendor that has that much control over our votes. And when I see what's happening in California and New York City and Virginia and other states, and the thing that I want people to know, Steve, is it's not just happening with these elected officials. It's happening on every ballot initiative, when people in Colorado here, they want people to believe that Republicans voted for property tax increases. That didn't happen, but it passed somehow fraudulently. So we still need to ring the bell and tell people that to get involved, be educated, and just keep fighting. People have told me, Steve, that, well, they're afraid. People are afraid because of what happened to you. If you're afraid, you're part of the problem. And I'm just going to put that bluntly. If you're afraid, you're part of the problem, because then they've won. And so you can't be afraid. You have to be courageous. You have to stand up, because that's your mission, and that's why you're here. So every patriot out there, stand up peacefully, and expose the truth. And the truth is that they're stealing our elections, and they're very bold about it. And so far, nothing's being done. And my main concern when I was in prison is that we're going to lose this country if people don't start exposing this and speaking out.
So my phone is blowing up, and a couple of questions that I see that I'd like to ask. First thing is, how are you feeling? Everybody wants to know how you are, how you feel. I know you took a couple of days just to sleep round the clock. You look terrific, and they want to know how you're feeling.
Well, there are some health concerns. My I just found out that my vitamin D level is at 34, which it should be between 80 and 100. So, I'm addressing that, addressing getting good food. One of the first thing that I wanted when I was released was I wanted a steak, a big, thick, juicy steak, baked potato, and a salad. So I've been able to get good food. I'll get back on my health regimen. And, I feel like I've aged 10 years being in prison because of all the plastics that we're exposed to. All of the, just the food is all processed. If you can imagine a toddler's meal, an unhealthy toddler's meal with all the processed food, that's really what prison was like nutritionally. So a lot of those women are developing diabetes and different things that are preventable because of the nutrition that they're not getting. So that's, my health is, my energy level is a little lower than it used to be. And I'm working on getting that back up again. But I'm here to fight. I'm here to continue.
30 seconds. Everybody's asking me how they can reach you to give you their prayer, their love, and everything. Is there an email that we can go to?
Thank you. Everything is on tinapeters.us. It's a one-stop place where people can reach out. If there are, I will be speaking. So there are ways to support me there and ways to get my voice out for the people. But tinapeters.us is the best place, and we are continually revamping and updating that website. But sign up. Give your email so we can send out emails to you to keep you updated on what's going on and where I'm going to be. Because of security issues, there will be some limited availability for me to actually do what I love to do most, and that's to hug, everyone and to thank them. So I'll have to do that more in venues like this, Steve, for now.
Thank you very much for coming on and taking the time.
God bless you.
So that was another big video update with Tina Peters. And now the next big one here.
Browser Chrome.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. We have returning guest and good brother, Mr. Derek Johnson, joining us from somewhere in a obviously private and disclosed location, who's going to be giving us his knowledge and insights at this critical time that we find ourselves as we're crossing the Rubicon, just 2 weeks away, roughly, from the 4th of July and all that promises from President Trump. And he has some really important information I'll be sharing with us accordingly. So if you're new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share. Helps the channel grow and others to gain in the knowledge you're currently being afforded. As you know, Derek is a military vet and continues to serve in even greater capacity here in the Truther movement. He is a country music singer-songwriter. He's a Christian, strong family man, believer, and he has 2 successful books, The Midnight Rider Rides Again, Part 1 and Part 2. And as always, I'm honored and pleased to have on the one and only Mr. Derek Johnson. Thank you, sir, for being here. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing all right. Just rainy day here, and had to vote today for all of President Trump's candidates. The runoff, they got runoffs, so had to get that in. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for doing that, and thanks for being here. We appreciate it. So, Derek, the first question I want to ask you is something that I know is near and dear to your heart, and something that's been bantied about to you both individually and in different group podcasts you've been in. And that is, of course, all the pageantry and all the buildings and things that we're seeing at the White House right now with the UFC fight that just happened on Sunday. There's been some statues and buildings, monuments that have been put on that the public has not seen before, that you could say, well, it's because of the 250th anniversary. But in fact, it's something a lot deeper and more meaningful. And so I've seen you on podcasts, and you and I have talked about this before, so it'll be no surprise to you. And I'm referring to the EBS. You have said many times ardently that we need to have one. It's inevitable. Now, some have asked you if you thought that it would happen on the 4th of July. And it's not about putting dates or anything like that, but do you feel that the EBS will happen sooner and later? And what does the significance of all these monuments and buildings, structures that are happening on the White House lawn mean to you from a laws and order standpoint?
Well, it's just a resetting of everything. I mean, it's kind of, I think a lot of people look at our history, and it's well, first you got to know our history. I always tell people. But I think a lot of people who do somewhat know a little bit of our history, they tend to get stuck on almost like we can't do something because of that history. I'm like, no, our founders made the Constitution as a shell, as a broad framework. The laws under that are what we pass. We don't always need them, kind of like the birthright citizenship. It was needed during that time period. We don't need it anymore. People hear that and they think that, oh, you're abolishing that. Oh my God, it's not needed. Something else can go in its place or whatever it may be. So, it's kind of, we're DC, District of Columbia. People have said DC so long, they don't even know what DC stands for. And they don't even realize the military views it as a foreign territory. Military pilots, when they're flying into the District of Columbia airspace, they must request access to get in there. Military. has to ask access to get in there. Now, is that a big deal today? Depends on what they're doing, right? Depends on what they're accessing in there. But no, it's pretty common when they're talking back and forth, but they still have to do it, which means that by man-made structure or man-made terms, we've deemed it as a foreign territory. And so, when you look at, they get 3 votes and electoral votes. It has its own motto, it has its own seal. They have their own constitution in D.C. A lot of people don't know these things. And the swamp made D.C. their territory, basically. It's where they made their operating grounds. And then you operated on their terms, right? And that's why President Trump mentions he's been there 17 times, which obviously ties into Q. But it's also part of draining the swamp. And so, building structures, you got the left over there who don't know what's going on. They see it as like, oh, you're tampering with historic grounds and all these other things. And they have no clue, terminology wise, that DC is a foreign territory. So there's a lot of different things that ties in with that shows the breakage of the crown. Now, when you start talking about the crown again to even Republicans and conservatives out there in the normal world, they think you're crazy because it's all, again, a terminology thing. It's more of a, like an illusion or a facade to them. And it is in another kind of way, but at the same time, it's how they operate. And they, being the swamp, have used those congressional terms and those lawful, which we call, is really they've been using legal terms, not lawful terms. They use this legality over everybody, and the people have never questioned the law. Is it legal? Is it lawful? No one's ever questioned the difference. So it's gotten a lot to do with that, even though the average person's not ever going to know that until later down the road, even if they care about it. So it has a lot to do with just resetting of the actual system and the structure. And it's kind of like what I talk about. I'm not a parent, but most people listening are parents. If you're a good parent and you care about your children, a lot of you have set your children's life up to be successful, whether they know it or not yet, right? You set these grounds, you set these boundaries, you set these structures, you set all these things for them to be successful. And that's basically what President Trump and the military has done with certain things that people just don't know about yet, is they went ahead and did it, and they had to do it, and they're doing it, and it's been done.
So far, so good, you guys.
Folks are dying from straining on the toilet, and I'm sounding the alarm. Watch this. Hello, I'm a paramedic, and
where people can benefit from it down the road, whether they know what they're benefiting from or not. So there's that angle. And then, just all the other stuff. They've been showing things. I've shown it occasionally when you see it, but President Trump, they downsized. They've sold some buildings. They've gotten rid of buildings. We're talking about thousands of federal workers, so that was the swamp system. They've turned some of these buildings outside of DC, but like one in California, they've turned into a homeless shelter, which is still funded. That's why President Trump said we're going to rescue the homeless off the streets and we're going to pay for it. So they're taking all this fraud money and distributing it the correct way. So a lot of this ties into the fraud and busting the fraud, because most of this money has funded these buildings and funded these federal workers who weren't doing anything at all. So, a lot of it ties into all different aspects. You can't just look at one like some people do, but other than that, the emergency alert system, I still think, and this is just my opinion, I may be wrong, but I'm like a buddy of mine who's an inside guy, big guy, but he's inside guy and no one knows him. He always says this. He said, we're 99% correct, but I leave the 1% open because I'm human. And I can't be perfect because only one man has ever been perfect that we know of on this earth. But that 1%, there's two things I'm willing to bet on with the 1%. Is one, I believe Obama's in on this, and he still could be punished back here. But I think Obama is a key player that's going to turn and flip the tide Because again, this was never about us staying 50-50, even though it's not really 50-50. But whatever the true number is, like Dan Scavino says, don't let the 10% make you think they're the 90. We still should be about that 10%. If it's 10% of Democrats and liberals truly out there, we still should be about them as well. Because anyone who has a mind and a brain and a heart and a spirit and a soul have the right to know the truth. They may not receive it, they may not be receptive, but they still should be delivered that, whether they receive it or not. Because the ones that do, then they'll be able to say, hey, you care about me? You actually care. Actually, I do. Because at the end of the day, it's not about what you're doing behind your closed doors, as long as it's not hurting a child or anything of that nature. You know, like there's certain things you just cannot make someone do. Believe in God, believe in Jesus, worship God, worship Jesus. Can't make people do stuff like that. So that you can still be a good person and not believe in God. You still be a good person and not believe in Jesus. There are people like that, and only God can truly judge them. So at the end of the day, Obama would be someone that would absolutely flip the tide on their side. No matter what President Trump says or does, he cannot make certain people like him, love America, love anything, or pull their weight on top of it. Just resetting the system alone doesn't make people pull their weight and be educated and be knowledge and know how things operate and function and the systems from here all the way down. Everybody's got to get involved in that and know that. So I'm willing to bet that Obama, that's one thing I'd bet on out the gate. That there, because he's someone, if you went up to Democrats and said Obama or Hillary, that's a no-brainer. They'd dump Hillary like that. All right. So it's got to be someone on their side that has a massive face and massive figure who can shift the tide on their side for the future. All right. For President Trump's exoneration. And in order to do that, how do you get everybody at one time? You have to use TV, you have to use radio, you have to use everything. And the only way to do that in one accord would be to use the emergency alert system, because then every phone known to man, computer, any kind of communication form, radio, TV, internet, broadcast, is under the command of a wartime president. That's 47 U.S. Code Section 606, which ties in your 96 Communications Act and your 1934 Communications Act. He has the authority and power to do so. And what other way? I mean, I wouldn't do it in a doomsday form. I don't think they're going to do it in a doomsday form. I think what they could do is use that emergency alert. I don't like to use churches in this instance. I like to use places that a bar or a tavern, or a pub somewhere. You got people coming in to drink beer, drink whiskey. They're out to have a good time. Mm-hmm. Right? Most people in bars and pubs are not talking politics unless they're talking amongst themselves, their friend groups. Right. But most people even are not doing that. They go to a bar to get away from life. They're watching sports, or they're talking about, their week. So if you think about people sitting around a bar, right, and all of a sudden the TV's in there flip and their phones flip, well, no one's going to be able to say, hey, man, is your phone, dude, is your phone? They'll all be doing that. And it'll all be on the same accord. That's what the emergency alert system would do. And I don't see people getting in fights over that, because everybody's phone, TV, computer, whatever they're looking at will be flipped to it. And that would bring cohesion from the standpoint of, you're going to have all the patriots going, I told you. And then you're going to have all the others going, what did that guy just say that Michelle Obama's a dude? So it gets some, it's truly unconventional warfare with what we're working with, because unconventional means where you are and working with what you got. Well, today we have technology, we have phones, we have apps, we have all these things. So unconventional warfare is applying strategies and tactics with what you have today. That would be an unconventional warfare tactic, like President Trump was the one who revolutionized using then Twitter for a communication form as a president. If you went back to his generation, if President Trump could go back to high school or college and tell all his buddies, one day I'm going to use this app. There's going to be this app. There's going to be a cell phone. They didn't have these. Well, no, we didn't grow up with them, right? So if you went back and said, one day we're going to have this little thing that we hold in our hand, it's going to be like a little computer. And they didn't even know what a computer was, right? So we're going to have this thing, and it's going to be this app, and I'm going to be able to reach 100 million people just like that, right? And if you were to be able to go back and tell your friends and buddies
15 minutes into it, 45 to go,
that you're going to use something so revolutionary, and it's going to bring these people, whether they like it or not, they're going to have access. They would have laughed him right out of the building. It's no different than ancestors. If you pulled an ancestor out today and showed them an automobile, they'd be like, they'd probably run, jump back in the graveyard because they were used to horse and wagons and buggies. So, it's unconventional warfare. I just don't think you can use a doomsday form because people are so used to doomsday. They're so used to negativity. They're so used to, nuclear this and nuclear war. They've heard nuclear war so much. Even if there was a nuclear attack, people would be roaming in the streets. They wouldn't listen to someone like me. Hey, take shelter. They'd be like, that's what people do. So you use the reversal of that. And in present UFC, no one would have ever dreamt this guy's going to grab the microphone and be like, Michelle Obama's a dude, right? No one saw that coming. All right. But everybody was watching, even the liberals, because they wanted to pick it apart. They wanted to see something on there that picked it apart. So, see, they still had attentive eyes and ears watching this thing, whether they wanted to or not, just where they can find. So that's the last thing in the world they thought they were going to hear. So now it's stuck.
We need to publicly apologize to everyone who bought our titanium pro pan because we lied. Yeah, it's true. The pan is naturally non-stick thanks to its
Go USA! Go USA! Starting the soccer game. USA and Australia.
engineered titanium surface. The pan is 100% non.
Now it's trending. Now people they may be on the front, like I tell people, let people react. Let them react. You don't have to react to it. Let people react to it. But on the front, they may be all this. Back there, they're really going, why would this guy say Michelle Obama's a dude? Right. So it's got them thinking. And it's going to get them to doing this. They're going to actually start looking on Google now. Maybe there is something over here. They're going to put on the front for their family and friends, and they're going to be all tough here, right? But it's going to get them really thinking. That's why it's trending. The Google analytics are showing people that it's trending, that people are looking this up, right? Well, it's not patriots. It's not you and I looking that up. We already know this stuff. So
that's right.
So it creates that environment. And now, like I was telling a friend last night, have you seen Barack Obama come out and defend himself? Have you seen Barack Obama come out and defend his wife? No. Have you seen Michelle Obama come out and say anything? Now, liberals are going to say, they're too classy for that. Nah, not those accusations. You would be coming out quick. And especially if you're any kind of husband, your wife would want you to defend her too. You would see that. James Comey, 1.1 million followers. They tell you in marketing that 10% of your number, roughly 7 to 10%, will buy anything you put out. If you had a book or a CD or whatever it is, product, all this stuff. 1.1 million followers, and James Comey can't even post for a solid year. That should tell people right there that, hey, the guy's all over the news with lawful lawsuits, right? Well, he's been told he can't get on his Twitter, now X, and post anything. As we know what Miranda rights do. Anything you say can be held against you in the court of law, right? And there's a new sheriff in town. So a lot of this can show just that simple comment, who's responding that should be responding, and they're not responding to that in these accusations and these allegations. So it's going to force the card, even though I know it's an operation, but for the people that don't know that yet, the operational tactics and strategies, I don't know what their next move will be because I'm not in the war room. But this sets up something that's going to bring Barack back into the picture. It's going to bring Michelle back into the picture. It's going to bring Hillary into the picture. You see Hunter Biden coming back into the picture now, having this interview with Gavin Newsom. California going on with the voting. So it's bringing every major core national emergency by President Trump back to the surface now as we approach July the 4th, which is a big deal, obviously. So it's going to set something up. I wouldn't go as far as say it's on that day, but it's setting a tee up, right? And it can't go on forever. But I do believe it's close, whatever they're going to do and however they do it, because there has to be accountability for these executive orders and national emergencies. The election interference, which is that's President Trump's legacy, all right, one of them, and then child trafficking is another. So that sets his exoneration up. Him turning 80 is a big deal. My dad, he passed at 83, and your 80s are those years, right? Rarely do people get to 90s and 100s. So President Trump, the real President Trump, deserves to be exonerated, his name fully cleared, for him to be able to enjoy even though he's enjoying it because it's a strategy and a tactic and an operation, but for him to see his name exonerated to the public that way, for the 45-47 to have its full effect. And that's rapidly approaching. But it's all planned. But I wouldn't go as far as say the exact day. But then again, that would be fun fireworks, because that would, it would set for 250 in the history books. And what we know of the 4th of July is fireworks. That would be the ultimate if they did do that. And I kind of hope they do. I mean, I would hope that there's something like that where it's like jaw-dropping. But it's got to be jaw-dropping.
Agreed. Thank you, Derek, for the articulate analysis, as customary you do. But putting it out in a broad scope, we're only about, from the time of this podcast, we're about 4.5 months from the midterms. Would you say it's fair to say that it's going to happen way ahead of the midterms? Would that be reasonable?
I don't know, but I think it should. And I think all colonels, we're all on board. Of course, I hadn't been on podcasts with them in the last month, but last time we were on together, we're all in accordance with looking at operational security. Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi and I have been talking about operational security a lot. And there was just an article that came out yesterday on military.com, which only veterans know about it. But military.com, they can be a little hairy, scare them sometimes with their, articles. This one particular article was about how the 82nd Airborne had deployed to Israel. No one knew about it. Well, that alludes to, again, a wartime president. Of course, any president a commander don't have to tell you anything in reality. And that's the way it should be. But the article focused way down in the bottom. That's why I try to tell people, when you're reading an article, there's a way to skim it and find the actual, the meat of it. The meat of it was operational security. And that's not an aftermath operation. That's a prevention strategy to prevent, but it means that it ties into stabilization. So we're in the stabilization phases of Israel and Iran. So that should tell people right there, the ones that still think it's a normal, even though it's not, but those that just can't grasp the operation yet, that should tell you right there that Israel and Iran are settled. And they're in the stabilization phases. And just because paratroopers and different things like that are going in there, they're a rapid deployment team, and they can operate quicker than other teams out there. So it's just knowing a little bit about that. But, moving to November.
Every month, this Airbnb pays about $2,700 in semi-passive income.
All of it's pre-planned anyway. I do think that they're probably going to get one more election in with this election interference, just because the playing field was so big. Now he's already exposed Nevada and can't remember Arizona, and then of course Michigan were three of the key states that were in the lawsuits way back in 2020. But California was not in the lawsuit. But California, as we know, big state for geographical regions. And then Gavin Newsom, there's a lot of people out there still don't like him, but I'm like, he's playing a role because he's always he uses the Q and all of President Trump. He mimics President Trump's things. When he took President Trump's photo with the Q plus in his hand, he put his face on.
Yeah, the first show, everybody's at work. I'm glad everybody gets to listen at work, so that's good. And then tonight we're gonna have. I got a 2-hour Captain Kyle one for tonight from last night, but they don't show their faces on this one. So, but still, it's Captain Kyle. And then a bunch of other stuff still to come. A lot of good stuff out today. I did a Tina Peters one earlier, and Tulsi Gabbard.
And posted that on Truth Social. So a lot of this is tied in. But, will it be settled by then? I don't know. And I don't know how they're going to display that to the people. I've got a lot of a lot of ideas that I think they could do. But at the same time, personally, I think that, I personally think that the way you play your cards would be to go ahead and show people the bigger picture. Then they'll believe the election fraud. All right. Because when you show people the actual fraudsters and what they were doing elsewhere, then they'll believe election fraud because that's how they stayed in power. Right. And it was their system they established. So when you go in there and show that, hey, they've been trafficking or they've been tied to this, and this, it'll make other people out there sitting in the normal seats more receptive to hear that, well, this is how they did this, right? So it's just putting the puzzle together. So to get to November, most people are voting right now. The numbers are looking solid in every state. President Trump showing that the geographic of that. I mean, he is undefeated in certain states, and even states that typically in the past, before the operation, were Democratic states. So that shows you the playing board that's been cleaned out. So, I don't think that's something they let roll into history without having an explanation on. You can't just clean out a system without telling people. So I think that, there's something that's going to be between here and November that'll make people more receptive to the election fraud. Because as of right now, most average Americans that don't know about these podcasts, they sit there, oh, I've heard this for years. They cheat on both sides. I mean, I've heard it my whole life. And in order to get that person, whether they're on the left or the right, to sit down at a table to here's the actual fraud, you could, like me, I have a #1 best-selling book about country music. And every country music artist out there could read it. And if they can't afford it, I have a few podcasts that's been exposing that. But they don't. And so the truth is right there, literally, but they don't want to know it. And that's where people are out there. They're either lazy or lackadaisical, or they've heard it so long, they just become numb to it. So there has to be something that shakes them. And it's things like the UFC guy grabbed the mic saying that Michelle Obama's a dude. So there's got to be something that grabs them in another way. And maybe it's just to go ahead and bring the cards down. I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of ideas of what they could do, but it still has to be lawful. It still has to be in the boundaries of the law. So when you look at it that way, it's not many things they could do except for here's what they've been doing. And that's what J.D. Vance and all that stuff's been about lately. Tim Walz's name's been brought back up. Now Tim Walz is supporting something to do with what they're doing in Minnesota. So see, they bamboozled all those people in Minnesota and the liberals across the land with Tim Walz, and it got them believing in him. Now he's saying something that actually supports what President Trump's doing. So see, there's a lot of playing tactics that they're doing. So I think they're going to do that with Gavin Newsom. I think that he may turn on the liberals in their minds, right? And so it's just a big playing board, and that's why it takes so long to talk about it, because there's so many things going on, and it's rapid fire everywhere, and it's literally like having a push a button and be like, all right, let's talk about Minnesota, and then push it back down, and let's talk about. But it's all happening at one time.
Well, there's a lot of moves and counter moves to your point there. So that was well said. And you're right. A lot of people in the mainstream of society think that this is going to be business as usual, but as they're soon about to find out, it's anything but. And this underscores that point. One quick thing I want to do before my last question for you today, I want to touch on as a sub point there to what you shared. You said something critically important amongst the many, that Israel and Iran have been settled. But are you concerned or wondering if Bibi is going to try to hit the power plants, the Bashir power plants of Iran, now that this peace deal has been settled? Or are you sort of intimating that that's been dealt with and that's not going to be an issue?
Well, it could be. I mean, it could be to where this is how you bring the house of cards down there. Like I said, I'm not in the war room. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what a war room is, that's where your generals and your commanders are. And they're deciding the playing board. Now, I already know that this has already been done. When President Trump rolled down the escalator, this whole 45-47 operation already had it. It was choreographed. And because there's only so many things you can do lawfully again. And they already they already know what needed to be done. Because it should have been done years ago, as President Trump said, 47 years ago. This is how long that the swamp has been playing their diplomacy game. And that's why President Trump's hammering Obama again about the great new deal that they did, you know. So all that's come back to fruition. So it could be something to where, yeah, you know, I know what Q board said that, you know, it's that Israel will be saved for last, but, you know, Israel has had a memorandum of understanding with us since the late 90s, even though we had funded them in different ways before, but we've had this thing called a memorandum of understanding, and it's signed every 10 years, and it plays out to 2028. And most negotiations were happening about a year and a half before it. And so I went back, I was watching a video of President Trump that I had saved from way back in 2022, even though he said it before then. But he was talking about the F-35s way back then. Well, that's what program Israel's been using of ours, our F-35s, which is, they're all based out of Montgomery, Alabama. And so the F-35s. So, you know, it's like all this stuff, little things like that can tie in that this was coming down the road. And President Trump in that video said, and they can't stop it. He said, nothing can stop what's coming way back then. And he said that in multiple scenarios. So you could do that. Now, I think people are still fatigued where we are right now with the whole war. And, you know, that's the other thing that they've got to do. They have got to go in and show verbally and exoneration wise to liberals and Republicans who have jumped ship with President Trump. They've got to show via military how there's a huge difference in a war and a conflict and an operation. It's a terminology thing, and some people are just never going to believe it because they think bombs and removal of anything is still war. It's not. A war means that it's like you were talking earlier about a broad picture. War is the broad picture. There are battles in a war. This wasn't battle-based. These were all aerial bombardments. We dropped bombs, we took it out. The few that are on the ground are just there because of either humanitarian aid or also, you know, cleanup process. Like President Trump said, we're going to get in and get the nuclear dust. So that is not a war. That's an operational conflict. And getting people to know the difference. So there's another thing that they've got to clear up for President Trump, because he said all this time, I haven't started any wars. I'm the first president in 80 years that didn't start a war. Well, that looks like a lie to the people over here who don't understand terminology. So that's another thing on the slate that has to be exonerated for President Trump. So if you go do something now with Israel on behalf of the U.S. now, let's say Israel retaliates on and does these things themselves, then President Trump comes in. And that is another thing, which it can be hilarious in one way, because then you flip all these liberals and get them to going, oh, he's starting war with Israel, right? And it's like, oh, you guys hated Israel just a few weeks ago. So I could see that happening, and it would be humorous. And the same thing with all these patriots out there who hate Israel and don't even know why. Like, I'm like, that would be humorous in one way, but at the same time, be another thing on the slate that you'd have to clear up, and it would drag out, again, X amount of months. I mean, we're talking July the 4th, just however many weeks away now, you know, in days, right? And then, like you said, the November election. So, you know, that would be another thing that would have to drag out way out here. And people are going to get super fatigued. And you don't look at patriots. Patriots don't make up a massive number. Now, they make up enough to make a noise like the Revolutionary War did. It was only 1.8% back then on average. But when you look at the bigger playing field, look at all the rhinos that have resurfaced. Look at all these people who claim to be Republicans and all. Now, X is a captured operation, but you can still get a good idea by all the people who said, I voted for him, now I'm done with it. Well, first off,
there's a layer of muscle in your back that you've probably never heard of. You can't see it, you can't touch it, and you
unless there's a historic fourth term,
26
and
minutes.
fifth and sixth, and President Trump lived to be 110 years old, or whatever. Other than that, I'm like, that's a dumb comment they're making anyway, because as of normal standards, he's already done. So there's no reason to even say, oh, I'm done with him, because he'd be cursing out. But I don't see that happening. I could be wrong. But, you know, so many people already have a wrong perception of Israel right out the gate. And even in the patriot world, I mean, there are people out there absolutely just hate Bibi and absolutely hate Israel. And I'm like, the future is forward. Every American has got, I was explaining this yesterday and I can't remember to who, but our military law is set up on British standards. Every bit of our military law stemmed from the British. So you'll hear people out there, patriots, talking about the British, you know, and the crown. And I'm like, no, the crown is separate. The crown has to do with government. Military is different. Strategies and tactics of the military are different. But when you look at our structure and our setup, you know, it's you cannot argue with that. And we are liberators. We go in and liberate no matter what. But we shouldn't be going in liberation for a diplomacy type war that these powers made up. Right? It's all made up. There have been cases in history that needed us as soldiers, yes. But it's not been as often as what the average crowd out there thinks because of diplomacy and these people who found a way to make money through war, as President Eisenhower talked about. So what every American's got to do is get in a mirror and go, how do I prevent the swamp from growing back? How do I prevent all the atrocities that we've seen? You know, people are messaging me all the time. People are dying, Derek Johnson. How can you see it? I'm like, you're just as big as the problem. You want to put the blame on me or someone that's like a podcaster or a, you know, military or someone, a general or a commander. You're part of it too. Right, so they don't even realize that they're one of the key fabrics as well. Now I'm with the military, right? Well, it's like, well, someone's got to be the drummer boy. You can't all be carrying the musket and on the front line, but you can pull your weight where you can pull your weight, and we've got to prevent this stuff. So looking back on Israel 70 years ago and what should have happened, what could have happened, what didn't happen, what did happen, has no bearing on right now. Right now is the playing field for President Trump is to make sure the future is preventable, the accountability, the, you know, responsibility, but also the infrastructure, the structure, everything from that, everything moving forward. And too many patriots are still looking backwards, and everybody's wanting to celebrate something. Oh, we won. No, we're never going to win like that. You win by moving forward, by making sure you prevent these things from happening. You don't see when people stop to celebrate, that's when things happen. And that's when the enemy moves in. You don't ever stop to celebrate, right? You keep moving forward. You make your moving forward your celebration, and you make prevention your celebration. And that's where we've gone wrong in the past is people want to stop and celebrate something. When I'm like, no, when you stop and you stop to celebrate and you get loose and limber, that's when the enemy moves in on you. And we can't do that. So Israel's one of those things where people need to quit looking at the past, look at the future. And I don't think the future would be to start something again at this place. Unless Israel does do something like you asked, that's one thing. But I still don't think it would be something massive because you've got this group of people out here who are fatigued. And if you lose them, then it would be crumbling. So they know the point of which is the breaking point of when to flip that switch. And that's why 45, 47, the dash is so genius and brilliant, is because there's been other breaking points that people thought was a breaking point, and right when they thought they were going to break, something happened for the good, not negative. And this whole thing was not to be negative. The whole thing was to reset minds, reset the declaration, reset the structure, infrastructure, systems, codes, etc., and give everybody a clean start.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And as you said, like Proverbs says, iron sharpens iron. So that's what we're here to do, ultimately, biblically. And like our president says, we'll see how this all plays out, even though we know he knows exactly how it's going to play out. So we know he's the surety of his plan through the Lord, and et cetera. And actually, that's a great last question to ask you. And I want to apologize up front to you, Derek, because this is probably a question I should have asked you long ago, given our mutuality of belief in the Lord Jesus and our faith thereof of the Lord and our relationship with him thereof. And so this last question is more of a broad range faith-based question. I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about it, but do you think the Trump administration and the military, one and the same, are aware of or believe in the late great Kim Clement's prophecies that he did long ago? As you know, Kim Clement said that President Trump was going to run back in April 7th of 2007, good 9 years before he actually stepped on the escalator. A lot of his prophecies came to pass. Most recently, he said, I will remove the hand of America off of Iran, and now we see this peace deal happening. So what are your thoughts about that in terms of Kim Clement's accuracy of his prophecies and what we're seeing play out now in real time that was foretold, like the prophets were supposed to do long ago, with America's return to God, particularly as a constitutional sovereign republic?
Well, yeah, like you say, prophets don't know they're prophets until they become prophets, right? Because they're doing what God has instructed them in their heart and their soul and their spirit, right? And that's why so many people, my preacher and I were talking about this the other day, a lot of Christians are Christians from the outside in, not the inside out, right? And it's really a mindset. We were talking about this yesterday, my preacher and I. We were talking about this, about how, when you become a Christian, your mind don't become a Christian. Your mind still has a battle game. So my dad always said, an idle mind's a devil's workshop. Well, when you become a Christian, this is what changes: your spirit, your attitude, your spirit. But you gotta renew your brain. You gotta renew your mind. You gotta flip your mind. You gotta flip your script, as I always say. It's like you gotta flip that. You gotta tell yourself, all right, out with the old, in with the new. Change your mindset. If you were once negative, time to be positive. Right? It's always a time to be positive, right? It's how you react to things. Faith is unseen. Every aspect of faith is unseen. Every aspect of it. I can't prove there's a God by physical, but I can in another manner, because I have the stars, the moon, the space, the darkness, the light, the air, the trees. When the wind's blowing, you can see the leaves moving. You can't see the wind blowing, but you can see the product of it, right? So there's a lot of things you can do in that regard. And so prophets don't really know they're prophets until they become a prophet, because they're doing the will and act of God daily in their life. And it's like me, did I, 20 years ago think that I'd write a book that was going to be a #1 bestseller, that was going to outline the only person who's outlined the whole thing? No, because no one knew that was coming yet, right? And so that was the future then. Now it's the past. And it's easy to look back on the past. It's so easy to look back. It's just like you and I in our personal lives. I can look back on vehicles I shouldn't have bought years ago, and go, what did I do that for? And then, and then it put me in a crunch, and it put me in this or negative equity or whatever it was, right? And so, all these systems, but you can look back on the past and beat yourself up. But you also go, you know what? That's why it's the past, right? And so prophets, a lot of people out there who are not Christians or faith-based at all, they think it's all hogwash. They think it's this, that, we got lucky and all this. Well, we have a book called the Bible. It proves that we're not lucky. You can't be lucky with God. You're blessed with God, but you can't be lucky with God, because God ain't based on luck. God is based on truth, right? And that book is always everlasting. And everything in it's not emotions based or feelings based. It can work on your emotions and your feelings, but if God worked on, well, that's if God operated with feelings and emotions, we get God on bad days too, right? You and I go to him with a problem, and he'd be like, "Hey, I got my own today. Can you come back tomorrow?" He'd be like, "I need you," and he'd go, "Well, a lot of people need me, right?" So if God worked that way, what I tell people too is like, "Hey, you know, with God, I don't know who he is, what he is. If it's a he, she, this, that, it don't matter. God is God. Is all. We're supposed to have questions like that. When I was a kid, I could not fathom how there was nothing and that something happened, right? I never could. Like, how was God just there? It freaked me out as a kid. But how was he just there? Grandpa was like, there's some things you're never going to know until you take your last breath, right? So when you don't know, it's a gray area. Don't focus on it. Don't focus on what you can know. And so President Trump has acknowledged Kim Clements. He did that in a post not terribly long ago where he posted about that. As far as the military, there may be individuals in the military that do know about it. Just anyone who reads and studies, especially generals, commanders, etc. It's typically your officers who are reading anyways. You're enlisted or not, your big readers. With certain things. They could be. Naturally, there's always a could be. But military tends to put religion aside in another manner. Just that way, it's more rigid and structured from that angle. And then the emotions and feelings are pretty much, that's why there's a lot of problems with our veteran community with emotions and feelings. On the flip, that's why we have a lot of suicide. And so it could be good and bad that we don't do that naturally inside, but I understand the reasoning is where you don't get your feelings and emotions caught up when you're asked to do something that's going to be difficult. And that's why we always get in debates with civilians out there. Civilians are always like, oh, this, and that. And we're like, well, that's why we don't get into that. It's because then we don't have any bias or anything. You're supposed to be rigid. You're supposed to be kind of straight line and from that angle. But there could be people sure out there that know about it. And they are cleaning up the academies. They're taking out all these ROTCs out of these woke liberal colleges and things of that nature. That's what you've seen Headset talking about, and all the different Harvards and Yales where they would commission through and what they were brainwashing them with. And that's why we've had a mixed up military, because we've had the West Points and the Air Force Academy. You have the academies, traditional military academies, but then you'd have all these woke colleges with their ROTCs. So they're commissioning officers, and then they get in there and then they start butting heads and see the more woke we're going against the more ridge line and the more straight laced. And that's why we've had what we've had. So I do know they're cleaning that out and they're getting things back. The physical fitness is getting back the way it should be. And it was tough when I was in another manner, but it wasn't as tough as it could have been. So they're getting people where they're gonna want to be in the military. Yeah, there's not gonna be any of this business. Oh, I didn't want to go to war. I didn't sign up to go. There ain't gonna be any of that business. There's gonna be you signing up to serve your nation, and if you get called to go somewhere, then this is what you sign up for. But I think they will start back, getting things that are more maybe faith-based in another manner for the veteran suicide portions. And then it's an option. It's whether you're receptive or not is the other thing, but I think they'll start putting that back in our military from that angle. I don't know how the military, I know how it got so rigid, but there are a lot of atheists in the military. I've served around a lot of atheists and a lot of people who are real far out there with that kind of belief. So I think they'll start trying to, not indoctrinate. That's probably the wrong term, obviously, but they'll start trying to integrate that in there probably again.
Implement.
Yeah. And if people are receptive, they'll be receptive. If not, then it's the same thing with choice again. But I think they'll give that more of a structure, from my understanding, because President Trump has a faith team. And he loves his faith team. That's why all the prayer warriors in there praying around him. That's not there's always going to be naysayers out there with anything, as we know. But that's what I try to tell patriots. Don't focus on that. The man became a Christian. He don't say certain things the same way that some people do, but that's what makes him President Trump. That's what makes him unique. And that's what gives him a lane to operate in, just like you want yours. That's what I tell people out there. So, but I know he's faith-based. I know that he's changed a lot in his years. And, when you get older, that happens as well. But his grandchildren, a lot of people know when you have children and grandchildren, it changes a lot of things that you thought of in the way you operate and function. So President Trump's still a human. He's got children and grandchildren. And he's faith-based from all angles now. And he knows about Kim Clement and, at the same time, you got to know who you are. Look, I mean, when you're a warrior of any kind or a soldier, you got to know your capabilities. You have to know here, and your physicality of what kind of person you are. And so President Trump knows, he knows where God's called him, and he doesn't, if anybody would just study the whole operation from that angle and look at it, he's not abused his power not one time from a lawful standpoint. So if anyone's receptive out there, Democrat, liberal, rhino, if they would just sit and just realize what all he's done lawfully, they realize he has not once abused his power. He has not once acted in ego at all. He has actually acted in humility from a true Christian in a standpoint from a man who's the most popular man on the planet in one position and the only position. They would actually see him more like a Moses or more like a Noah or more like, someone of the Bible that was just, almighty. That, Job in a different manner, even though Job lost everything and gained it, but you could look at it from that angle as that President Trump has acted in all humility of what a Christian of the Bible, of God's word, replicates, and then also the thief on the cross. That's the reminder daily that no one is better and no one's less worthy than anybody. If the thief on the cross can acknowledge Jesus Christ as the Son of God, then again, that's the whole point of Christianity, is acknowledge Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, invite him into your heart, and then walk daily with him. And so President Trump, same thing. So you can go at it at any angle for someone out there that's just attacking him all the time. You go, well, who are you to judge? And then they can say, well, he does this. Well, what do you do weekly? What do you do daily? People want to look at a position of power or fame and fortune as like that, oh, I can attack him. No, none of that matters at the end of the day. What matters is it's right here, the soul. Right. And so he has acted completely in the Bible terms. And so he knows about Kim, and I don't know what all President Trump gets into as far as like personal reading. But I know he reads, he sees, and he also has people around him that's showing him things that are quality, and showing him things that reassure him. I'm sure along the way, he's probably had a thought somehow, like depending on, you're human. Like you do naturally think, and when you're being attacked everywhere, the real person, you're sitting back there going, they're just coming. So naturally you can have, I had a buddy do that to me one time a few years back. I was just being honest, and he's like, man,
guys,
would you take back what you do? I'm like, no. He said, okay. If God brought you to it, he'll take you through it. Right. And so, and that's that mind thing. And that's what we have to always, that's why being a Christian is always either sharpening iron, like you say, or sharpening yourself and putting positive thoughts in yourself and quoting scripture. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. There's a lot of things you can just quote to yourself. And so, President Trump, he is, I'm telling you, now I've never been around him enough to know like all those aspects. I've been around him to see certain things, but I know he posted about it. And I don't know if you can search that or not, but I think I screenshot that way back. It wasn't terribly long ago. I think it was last year. I think it was in a 2025 year. It may have been early this year, but it could have been early this year. But And then the implications of that, it just shows where we are in the world. It shows that God has given his people who cried out to him. I think it's a great awakening. I do think it probably leads to the 1,000-year reign or something like that. I don't know where we are completely. I'm not a theologian. I've heard a lot of different people talking, but we are truly we're not in a doomsday. We're not in that. And we're not in a disruption of the world. This is truly a blissful golden age of awakening.
All right, I think that's a wrap.
It got stuck in the brand.
So that was a good one. There was only about 2 minutes left. We got it all, most of it. So I want to finish off with the 3-letter word government. A governor in California got raided. So that's 15 minutes. That will put us at 4 o'clock.
Today, including attempted damage and destruction of property, as well as possession of an unregistered firearm. Neighbors in Spring say they were surprised by the raid.
This story starts with a property tax return, a boring one. The kind of document that gets filed every year by every vineyard owner in Napa County, California, and the kind of document that no junior state auditor is supposed to find interesting on a Tuesday afternoon in February. Her name was Sarah Lynn. She was 28 years old, a junior auditor at the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. She had been on the job for 2.5 years. She lived in a small apartment in Sacramento with 2 cats and a stack of unread novels on her nightstand. On that particular Tuesday afternoon, Sarah was reviewing a routine batch of high-value rural property tax returns for the Napa Valley region. The batch contained 48 returns. Most were straightforward. Established vineyards, family-owned wineries, a few corporate holdings. One return caught her attention. The property was a 220-acre estate vineyard in eastern Napa County. The return listed the property's improvement value at approximately $14.8 million, which was high, but not unusual for a vineyard of that size with a primary residence and full winemaking infrastructure. The land value was assessed in line with comparable properties. The agricultural exemption was filed correctly. What caught Sarah's attention was a renovation expense filed on a supplementary schedule. The property's owner had claimed a $4.2 million subsurface structural improvement deduction across the previous tax year. The deduction was for what the filing described as subterranean infrastructure renovation, agricultural cellar expansion, and structural reinforcement related to estate barrel storage operations. $4.2 million in subterranean construction on a single vineyard property in a single tax year. Sarah pulled the comparable filings for the rest of the high-value Napa County vineyard batch. The average subterranean improvement deduction across the other 47 properties in the batch over the same tax year was approximately $180,000. Some had filed nothing at all. None had filed anything remotely close to $4.2 million. She pulled the previous 3 years of subsurface improvement filings for the same vineyard property. The pattern continued. $3.8 million in subterranean construction the year before, $4.6 million the year before that, $3.4 million the year before that. Across the 4-year window she could pull, the property had claimed approximately $16 million in subterranean construction deductions. $16 million of underground work on a single vineyard property over 4 years. The property was owned by a corporate trust. The trust's beneficial ownership traced through 3 layers of holding entities before arriving at a name Sarah Lynn recognized from the local news. The property belonged to the family of the sitting governor of California. If you believe corruption like this should be brought into the light, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and comment exposed below. The character whose office is at the center of this case, state executive named Lawrence Tesmer, 64 years old, 2-term governor of California. Sarah Lynn did not call the FBI on her first day of suspicion. She was too junior. She did not have the authority to escalate a politically sensitive matter on her own initiative. She also, by her own later account, was not entirely sure she was looking at something real. $16 million in underground construction on a vineyard was unusual.
USA scored again.
It was not
I
necessarily
think.
criminal.
Nope.
What she did
it
was
away.
carefully document the anomaly. She pulled every related filing she could legally access. She cross-referenced the subterranean construction claims against the contractors who had filed the corresponding work permits with Napa County. She found that the contractors listed on the county permits did not match the contractors listed on the state tax filings. The county permits showed 3 small, locally based construction firms. The state tax filings showed 2 large corporate construction entities that had no public record of any work in Napa County. Sarah quietly compiled a summary memorandum and walked it into the office of her department's senior auditor in early March. The senior auditor read the memorandum twice. She told Sarah to keep the file open and to continue her routine assignments. By the end of the day, the memorandum had been forwarded to the California State Auditor's Office. By the end of the week, it had been forwarded to the FBI's Sacramento field office, marked with a request for federal jurisdictional review.
When my streaming bill hit $180 a month for channels I don't even watch, I didn't get mad. I got friendly.
By the end of March, the federal investigation that would become one of the largest public corruption cases in the state's history was quietly underway. It would take 19 months to bring the case to the point where federal agents could execute the raid that ended it. The investigation moved slowly. It had to. Cases that involve sitting state executives move slowly. Every step requires more documentation, more verification, more redundant evidence than a case against an ordinary defendant. Federal investigators were not going to bring this case to a federal grand jury unless they could prove every element of every charge to a standard that would survive years of appeals. Through that parallel structure, certain executive branch decisions had been quietly aligned with the interests of major narcotics distribution organizations operating across California, Mexico, and the Pacific Rim. The decisions were small individually. Cumulatively, they were not. State narcotics task force funding had been redirected away from certain regional operations and toward others, in patterns that consistently weakened federal-state cooperation against specific cartel networks. State prison transfer policies had been adjusted in ways that quietly favored the early release or favorable institutional placement of incarcerated individuals connected to those networks. State environmental and land use permits had been routed through expedited approval channels for shell company properties, later identified as cartel-affiliated logistics infrastructure. State licensing decisions for legal cannabis operations had been steered toward business entities that, beneath their corporate layering, served as laundering vehicles for narcotics proceeds. Each of these decisions, taken alone, looked like ordinary executive branch policy implementation. Taken together, they formed a pattern worth roughly $4.8 billion in cumulative value to the criminal organizations that had benefited from them across the 12-year window. A portion of that value had flowed back to the governor and his inner circle through a layered network of shell companies, offshore consolidation accounts, and luxury real estate. The wine country property was the largest single physical asset in the chain, and buried beneath the vineyard, $16 million deep in subterranean construction across 4 years of tax filings, was the place where the chain physically ended. A vault. The man who had built the operation from the inside of state government was the governor's longtime chief of staff, Andrew Calderon, 57 years old, 20-year political operative, 2-time chief of staff. The kind of man who knew where every body in Sacramento was buried, because by his own quiet account, he had buried most of them himself. Calderon had run the parallel structure for the full 12-year window. But Calderon, like every other operational figure in cases like this, was not the architect. He was the implementer. The architecture, the system that allowed 12 years of executive branch decisions to be quietly aligned with cartel interests without triggering federal corruption investigations sooner, had been designed by someone with deep prior federal experience. Her name was Patricia Estes Vaughn, 66 years old, former Associate Deputy Attorney General at the United States Department of Justice. Before that, 14 years as a senior counsel in the DOJ Public Integrity Section. Before that, 11 years as a federal prosecutor in the Northern District of California. Patricia Estes Vaughn had spent 30 years on the federal side of public corruption prosecution. She had personally led investigations into governors, mayors, judges, and senior executive branch officials across the United States. She had written internal DOJ guidance documents on the prosecution of cartel-influenced political networks. She knew, better than almost anyone alive, what federal corruption investigators looked for, how they built cases, and what kinds of operational patterns they were trained to recognize. She had retired from federal service 11 years earlier. Within 8 months of her retirement, she had been quietly retained by Calderon as a private strategic advisor. The retention was not documented in any public filing. It existed entirely inside the encrypted communications archive that federal investigators would eventually recover. Inside that archive, her code name was The Counselor. A message in the archive, written 6 years into the operation, read, "Federal corruption investigators do not look for everything. They look for the specific things they have been trained to look for. Our work is to make sure that what we are doing does not appear on any of those lists." Lawrence Tesmer held the executive authority. Andrew Calderon implemented the decisions. Patricia Estes Vaughn had built the system that allowed 12 years of state executive decisions to be steered by cartel interests without ever appearing on a federal corruption pattern recognition radar, until a junior auditor in Sacramento decided to look closely at a vineyard's tax return. The raid happened at dawn. At 4:48 a.m. on a Thursday, a federal judge in the Eastern District of California signed simultaneous search and arrest warrants for 19 locations across California, Nevada, and the Bay Area.
This is me on day one, since my son made me switch from running to Tai Chi chair workout.
At 5:14 a.m., the order went out. Execute. The dawn timing was deliberate. The governor was at the wine country estate that morning. He had a public schedule clear until a fundraising event scheduled for early evening in San Francisco. The estate's private security rotation was at its weakest in the hour before sunrise. The vineyard's distant location from the main road meant that the only people who would see the federal vehicles arriving were the people already inside the property. FBI and DEA tactical teams approached the property through the access road and through a secondary tactical entry point along the vineyard's eastern fence line. The estate's private security personnel were secured without incident. Federal agents entered the main residence at 5:36 a.m. Governor Lawrence Tesmer was inside the residence. Federal engineering teams then proceeded to the property's wine cellar, which the team had mapped extensively during the preceding 19 months through subpoenaed construction records and federal infrastructure survey data. Beneath the wine cellar's primary barrel storage room, behind a concealed hydraulic locking concrete panel, agents accessed the vault. The vault was approximately 2,400 square feet of finished climate-controlled subterranean space. Inside, agents recovered the following: approximately $84 million in U.S. currency, banded and shrink-wrapped, approximately 280 kilograms of gold bullion, financial records covering the full 12-year window of the operation, a leather-bound coordination ledger documenting every decision made through the parallel structure, with corresponding entries for the cartel side beneficiaries, offshore banking documentation tied to accounts in the Cayman Islands, Panama, and Liechtenstein, and a smaller hidden compartment containing 4 foreign passports, 3 in different names, for the governor and his immediate family, 15 additional locations including the governor's official Sacramento residence, the offices of 3 senior gubernatorial policy advisors who had been operating as intermediaries between Calderon's office and the cartel-affiliated business entities, the registered offices of 9 shell companies across California and Nevada, 2 regional coordination properties in Southern California, and the private residences of 3 corporate intermediaries who had managed the offshore consolidation accounts. By 9:14 a.m. that Thursday morning, 52 individuals were in federal custody: Lawrence Tesmer, Andrew Calderon, Patricia Estes Vaughn, 6 senior gubernatorial advisors and policy aides, 3 senior state task force funding officials whose decisions had been routing through the parallel structure. Assets frozen domestically, $1.6 billion. Offshore accounts flagged through international cooperation agreements, an additional $1.8 billion under active legal proceedings, 2 additional residential properties in Carmel and Lake Tahoe, and the layered corporate holdings tied to the operation were placed under federal seizure orders. The California State Auditor's Office announced an immediate operational audit of executive branch decision-making protocols across narcotics task force funding, corrections institutional placement, environmental and land use permitting, and state cannabis licensing. The California State Legislature scheduled emergency hearings on the structural integrity of executive branch oversight mechanisms. The U.S. Department of Justice Public Integrity Section announced a parallel audit of post-employment restrictions for senior federal corruption prosecutors entering private practice. I want to come back to Sarah Lynn, because there is something I think gets lost in cases of this scale. The numbers are enormous. 52 arrests, $4.8 billion in corruption value, a sitting governor in federal handcuffs, a vault beneath a vineyard, a former senior federal corruption prosecutor as the architect of the operation she had once been responsible for prosecuting. But the case did not begin with any of that. It began with a junior state tax auditor in Sacramento on a Tuesday afternoon in February, looking at the supplementary schedule on a vineyard's property tax return and noticing that the subterranean construction deduction was $16 million too high. She did not have to keep looking. She did not have to compile a memorandum. She did not have to walk it into her senior auditor's office knowing exactly whose property she was about to flag. It did not survive a junior auditor with a habit of looking carefully at one row of a spreadsheet. If a corruption network this large could operate for 12 years inside one of the most heavily monitored state executive branches in the United States, moving $4.8 billion in cartel value through state decision-making while every formal oversight mechanism functioned as designed, how many other vineyard tax returns are sitting in batches tonight, waiting for someone like Sarah Lynn to read the supplementary schedule carefully enough to notice that the numbers do not match?
The government is banning these $29 adaptive glasses next month, and this is your last shot to get the original military-grade version. There's a new next-gen vision system out there, and it's the most brutal one.
Yep. And I think we all know what happened, how when the government started years, hundreds, decades ago, that it should be USA government, right? And it's like all these foreign people being our government. That's where all the fraud comes in, right? I think that's how you can explain it a little bit. You know, but the U.S. people is just, we still haven't gotten Omar arrested yet. How come she's still running the streets? I can't believe they haven't arrested her. Arrested her yet. Terrible. Okay, that was a big one. It looks like that was a good video to share. Important one. So we'll do the same thing what we did at the beginning of the show. I'll save the Captain Kyle after the first hour. We'll do the short videos for the first hour, then do the big one with Captain Kyle tonight. So everyone will have a good dinner tonight, Friday. Have a good weekend. We're winding down to what everybody's predicting, 10 days of darkness. So I don't know what's going on after. We're getting closer and closer. Tomorrow will be the 20th. What? Now you want up? We'll be getting off here in a minute. So thanks, mods. Flying Eagle had to work with work. He came in and did a disclaimer. Carol, Tim, Lucy Mom. I'll set the show up and be ready for 7 o'clock. And so God bless everybody. Remember, please hit like, stay safe, stay strong, keep the faith, and never give up. Signing off, Chico Dude. And we'll see you in a little bit.